Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We have a bit of an unconventional episode this week because, quite frankly, there ain't much going on in the world of Nintendo right now. Since we did our 2025 predictions episode last week, thank you for all the positive comments on that one, by the way. I had so much fun with that one as well. But since we did our predictions for the coming year last week, this week I wanted to get into what the future might hold for all of Nintendo's biggest franchises. Joining me for that is former Game Informer editor and Twitch streamer extraordinaire, Marcus Stewart. Marcus, how's it going?
It's going well. Extraordinaire, you say?
Oh, man. Extra extraordinaire, honestly. Like, you've carried forward the video series that you guys were doing. You were doing super replays and stuff like that, and you've continued those playthroughs.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, well, I'd rather not have them die in the vine, especially that Sekiro one that we promised people for years. Like, we're going to totally get back to this, and then never did. So it's like, well, I still have a save file, and I have a Twitch channel. I should just do it there. It's kind of like we finished the Ocarina, Majora's Mask super replay with MinMax. So I was like, oh, I guess it's technically all fair game, and I own the game, so I'll just keep playing it on my own channel.
It's not like when you started streaming that under the Game Informer banner that it was like, oh, well, I guess they own me ever playing Sekiro on camera ever again.
I did have to sign a contract in my own blood, weirdly enough.
That's weird. I just took this show independent. Nobody ever said anything.
I should have asked more questions, I guess. I was like, all right. Okay.
It's like, all right, yeah, my blood, whatever. Blood's cheap. It'll come back.
Blood is cheap.
In small quantities, I will give that caveat. Like, I've donated blood probably like 50 times. Like, it comes back.
I should start asking them when I donate blood, like, what's the monetary value of this? Like, where am I at? Am I in the upper echelon? Like, this is going to fetch a fair price in the black market. Is that where this is actually going?
Also, shout out to the Game Informer fan here in the Twin Cities area who has gotten my assignment twice to draw my blood for these things. And he like came up to me and he was like, you're the one with Game Informer. You're the Brian Shea with Game Informer, right? And I was like, yep. And he's like, oh my God, I'm like such a huge fan of Game Informer.
He's like, I've been wanting your blood for a long time.
Now he has my blood, which I don't know how I feel about that.
True fandom.
Look on eBay, see if my blood is listed anywhere. So before we jump in to our what could possibly be next, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be semi-serious, so just a disclaimer there to take that with a little bit of grain of salt. We don't know anything about what Nintendo is planning for most of these franchises. Some of them we do have an idea, but give that disclaimer. We're going to have some fun with this. But before we jump into that main segment, there is some news that we should absolutely cover here. Marcus, there's a company called Genki, which is an accessory manufacturer, and it reportedly brought a dummy model of the Switch 2 to its behind closed doors meetings with reporters and vendors at CES 2025, which happened this week. And apparently Genki is telling reporters that the model is the exact same dimensions as the real Switch 2, which is apparently a good deal larger than the Switch 1. And there was a German outlet that I was reading called Netzwelt. And it says that it's close to the Lenovo Legion Go, which I have not gotten my hands on, so I can't really tell you like how that feels. But I'm assuming it's bigger than the Switch 1. And according to Netzwelt, Genki also said that you can remove the Joy-Cons off the side and you don't need to slide up, which is consistent with the other leaks that we've covered on this show. But apparently, like according to that German outlet, Genki is telling them that the Joy-Cons are not magnetic, but instead they have some sort of mechanical locking mechanism. And finally, Netzwelt says that the right Joy-Con has an additional button when compared to the right Joy-Con of the Switch 1. So, Marcus, I'm assuming you've seen some of these leaks coming out. There's that, and then that was the first piece of the story. People were like, oh, wow, that's crazy that they would do that. And then on Tuesday night, Genki decided to say, screw it, and they put out a video showing how the Joy-Cons attach to a CG model of what they're saying is the Switch 2. And it shows the Joy-Cons attaching and detaching from the unit. And there's like buttons that you press that are kind of positioned inside of the Joy-Cons of the Switch 2. And you press that button to release it, and you can just pull it straight out instead of having to slide it up or down like on the rail system of the Switch 1. And then they show it like, I'm assuming this is to showcase some of their accessories that they have. There were like little attachments that made the Joy Cons feel almost like a real controller, where it has like kind of like the handle pieces almost. I don't know if that is meant to like show that they have a way to attach those to the Joy Cons, or if they're selling specific like extra Joy Cons, or maybe that's just going to be a thing that Nintendo sells with it. Like, there's very few details here. We're just going off of this video that they showed, which is absolutely unhinged behavior by a company that is trying to make accessories for an upcoming product. And then it does show a dock. And a thing that I noticed when it showed the back of the Switch 2 model, the video is about 25, 26 seconds long. When it shows like the back of the Switch model, it almost looks like there's a circle like you see kind of on the back of like an iPhone when it has the MagSafe charger.
Mm.
So I don't know if there's going to be some sort of magnetic charging capabilities where you can just, instead of having to slide it in the dock or connect it to a USB-C cable, if you can just leave it on one of like those like charging mats.
Mm.
And maybe Nintendo will find some way to monetize that, like with proprietary magnetic charging or something like that.
That's how they bring back the name Power Pad or whatever that NES thing was. They're like, it's
They should have
back,
a Power
baby.
Glove. A power. Oh my god, they could sell the Power Glove too, and all it actually, true to the name, when you're holding it, it has magnetic fingertips that recharge your Switch while you're playing with the Power Gloves. And look at this, we are on to something. That sounds like just quirky enough for Nintendo to be like, this is our gimmick. You can charge indefinitely. It'll bring the energy from your body to charge.
Just put on your magnet Power Glove.
We're gonna we're gonna sap the energy straight from your body to charge the Switch. How dystopian would that be? So Marcus, you've seen the videos, you've
Yes.
seen the reports here. Neither of us are at CES. It seems like this is legitimate based on the evidence that we are seeing from afar. How much of a grain of salt are you taking with this? Because I think that like all of the leaks to this point, we have been very much like, okay, this sounds feasible, but anybody could just make up anything. But this seems like there's a some actual credibility to it.
I mean, if this, I assume Genki, I don't know much about them, but they've made like accessories for the current Switch, I would imagine, right? Like this is
I
like
would
their
bet.
first rodeo. So I would imagine then if they've already worked with Nintendo or at least have manufactured things for Nintendo, that they wouldn't basically like lie about like this is what the Switch 2 looks like, because you're just, why would they design something for or like a blueprint that doesn't exist? Like that would be idiotic and a waste of money.
Hmm.
So yeah, I kind of go, yeah, I guess that's probably what it's going to look like, which honestly is, at least when it comes to Switch 2 reveal stuff, the actual form factor of the hardware is the least interesting thing about the Switch 2, because I don't know, I think you'd have to kind of fool yourself into thinking that it wouldn't just look 95% like a normal Switch with maybe a couple of little changes here and there. So you just look at it and go like, yeah, that just, if it looked more outrageous, I would be like, I don't know if that's what Nintendo's doing. But it's like, no, that looks like what I assumed it would, just like a Switch, you know?
Yeah, I saw somebody on social media sharing some of the like old like rumored like, oh, this is what the Xbox 360 is going to look like, and it was like a sphere. And I was like, that is absurd. And it like, we have exited the golden age of rumored console form factors. But I texted somebody who is in PR, not with Nintendo, but I was just like, hey, I wanted to get like some insight into like what this must be like for Nintendo to have like these leaks hitting. And again, this person does not work at Nintendo. It's just somebody else that like is a PR person and might have some insight into like the kind of things that goes through a company's mind when it leaks, when something leaks, so like especially big like that. And they basically said like, I think that that's probably the least of their worries. Like they're probably not happy about it, but like it's like the form factor was like maybe the most obvious part of what the Switch 2 is going to be. And if it was like, oh, well, here's like the Switch 2 running like a launch title that hasn't been announced yet, that would probably be like the thing that's like, okay, let's sound the alarm.
Yeah, or even if it ran like a current game, but it ran it like, I don't know, it ran it better and looked better.
Hmm.
Than it's like, oh, I guess that's what the Switch 2 can do. It can upscale Switch 1 games. That's, we didn't know that. I have to wonder, like leaks are one thing, but for Genki to just be like whoever owns it, like John Genki, to sit in his office and go, screw it, let's just push our website live and just show this video that pretty much gives away like you would think they would have to have gotten an okay from Nintendo, right? Like that seems wild to just say, what's the worst that can happen by not telling Nintendo that we're doing this? Yeah.
It's absolutely absurd. And like, I remember there was, I forget what the company was, but there was that, I think there was a Chinese company that kept putting out leaks of like, this, hey, we have a Switch unit, a Switch 2 unit, and here's all like the dimensions, here's what the screen is like. And they were just putting it out there saying like, this is like what we know. And it's like, aren't you like trying to get licensed to create stuff? Isn't that like your entire business is getting licensed accessories made for the Switch? You think Nintendo is going to like ever give you anything again if you leak that stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they wouldn't endanger whatever partnership or deal they have with them to just like, kind of basically go rogue and say, haha, we're number one. We're the first person to kind of sort of reveal the Switch 2. It's like, which if they did get permission, that seems weird for Nintendo to agree to it to me. Like, especially for them, like you'd think they'd want to be like, no, we're going to be the first ones to show the world what our next thing is, not some random third party accessory manufacturer at CES of all things, which is not that is not where like the mainstream gaming audience kind of points its eyeballs to.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe now that I'm saying it, like maybe it is why they said yes because they're like it's not going to be as big a deal as you think because most the world watches when we announce it, so you can sort of again kind of announce it there, and we don't give a I don't know, we don't care. It's weird.
I would be shocked if Nintendo gave them any kind of permission. Like they want to control this like information and the release of what everything about the Switch 2 is.
So are Genki just dumb then to
I
do
don't
this? Then
know.
if that's the alternative, is they did just go rogue and say, "Haha, push the website live," and then are they going to be surprised when Nintendo calls them and goes, "Dude, what the? What are you doing?"
Maybe they need to research. I mean, Doug Bowser is the president of Nintendo of America. Remember the woeful tale of Gary Bowser, who was that hacker that like had all those like the emulators and ROMs and everything.
Right.
He got slapped hard by Nintendo in terms of like you know the charges that they put up against him, and like he owes them like a percentage of every paycheck for the rest of his life or
Yeah,
something like that.
I think he works in the Nintendo mines now, just shackled to a rock, chipping away.
It's just Minecraft for Switch. But like yeah, like they are a litigious company, and I know that this is different than like copyright infringement, but like there's got to be an NDA if they have like an actual Switch 2.
Oh, I mean, you and I have signed Nintendo NDAs for the most trivial things. So
Yeah.
for this, that NDA is probably like the size of War and Peace. You know,
Yeah.
like please don't show anything of what this looks like. So, like, there's again, if that is what happened, if they just went into business for themselves, I can't, I try, I don't know, maybe I'm giving too much credit to like an executive in terms of like, no executive's that stupid. Like, that's just, if you know you're not supposed to do it, you wouldn't
No
risk, you
executives
wouldn't,
that stupid as we look around at the
I
social
know,
media landscape right now.
I know. That's why I'm catching myself. But it's like you would endanger your entire business and your employees to do something that ultimately has little like long-term benefit for you to spurn one of the biggest console manufacturers that you're currently working with. But I guess stranger things have happened, as you just said.
Yes, there's never been such a thing as a stupid corporate executive. We would never have any experience with anything like that personally, would we, Marcus?
So does that mean if that is true, this site do we give them the end of the day before this site gets taken down or
I
what?
mean, I'm wondering. I'm assuming just because Blue Sky does not have like the profile. Is it up on Wario 64? Because he was the
I,
one that I saw it. I
he
wonder
was
if it has been
posting
issued
it.
on because he posted it on his account. I'm wondering if it got taken down from his Twitter because I feel like Nintendo's not on Blue Sky, but they're definitely on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um. Oh my God, he posts so much. I mean, it's still up on Wario 64's Twitter, but like, I don't know like what really Nintendo. I guess Nintendo could issue like a copyright strike or something against it, or like a takedown request of content that shouldn't be out there. I don't know what like the rules are. I feel like the wild west of social media is returning, and I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, like I said, if this was meant to be shown behind closed doors, it makes little sense for like immediately after that to publicly put your website live because then what's the point of doing behind closed doors if everyone's going to see it anyway? So that feels like some rules are being broken.
Yeah, I have no idea. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm assuming my guess is 3 weeks from now we will know more about the Switch 2 because
And we'll
Nintendo
name Genki again.
we will never hear, and Genki will be, I envision, as soon as that video hit, I pictured in my mind Miyamoto getting into his car and going to Genki's HQ like John Wick and just, doing what he had to do.
He has them. He has John Genki and his like next closest businessman tied up in chairs, gagged, and he's gonna have them play a game of Russian roulette in front of him. For
So
any Squid Game season 2 fans.
is the CEO Professor Genki from the Saints Row series, or is it Genki, Miles Morales' best friend?
I Professor Genki, Genki from Spider-Man wouldn't be that dumb. Someone Professor Genki, you don't know what that rascal's up to. So I'm gonna say it's him.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you can
Yeah.
never predict what Professor
Yeah.
Genki's up to.
Like if Miles Genki was gonna do this, Miles would have swooped in and be like, I don't know, man. Maybe
Maybe don't leak the Switch 2.
listen, we got enough trouble in our hands here. Let's not get Nintendo on us.
And that disagreement is what made Genki turn into the Hobgoblin.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. All right. Marcus, let's get into this week's main segment. The idea here is that a lot of Nintendo's biggest franchises had one of their biggest or best entries on the first Switch. So I wanted to look ahead at how Nintendo could handle the franchise for a potential Switch 2 entry. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to name a franchise, and then we will take turns sharing our ideas on how the next entry could either top or evolve from the most recent entry, or in the case of dormant franchises, what Nintendo could do to bring it back into the spotlight. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any questions before we kick this off? And we don't have to be super long on any of these, but if you have cool ideas, let's go for it. You can also, like, if you just have no familiarity whatsoever with the franchise, you can also pass.
Yeah, I prepared some for some of the obvious ones that I assume you'll name. I don't know what your list is, but I guess fair warning to the sane viewers that some of these are really, really dumb because Nintendo is so hard to predict. But because of that, I hope that they're so stupid that they're actually plausible.
So stupid that they're actually plausible is like the mantra of my career. So I think that we are good to go. And also, people who listen to this show have come to expect stupidity. So I think we're good there.
Okay.
All right, so Marcus, let's kick it off with a one that I think that is an obvious starting point: the Super Mario Brothers 3D side of things.
Okay.
And the last entry that we had, and here's what I'll do for each thing is I'm going to give us a rundown of what the most recent entry was for each of these, so we have a frame of reference. So the last full entry was Super Mario Odyssey on Switch in 2017. But we did get Super Mario 3D World, which had Bowser's Fury, which was an all-new side game attached to it back in 2021. So for the 3D side of Mario, Marcus, what do you have?
Okay, so, last game, like every 3D Mario game, it's like one big new thing, one big new gimmick. He's had a water jetpack, he's been to space, he became a poltergeist basically in Odyssey and just possessed everyone. But what if the new 3D Mario game, kind of taking a page out of current 3D Zelda, let you sort of make your own fun, and you give Mario basically telekinesis or a telekinetic ability where he can move the platforms and the enemies himself. Like he can manipulate the world and orient it in whatever way necessary to create the optimal path forward. Like the levels are no longer static. He gets like, I don't know, he gets a little happy, smiley, like fairy person that's like, hey, here's a power. You can move things with your hands and your mind now. And that's what he does now. He can just, that POW block's too far away. He can just like bring it towards him. And then it opens up open-ended gameplay where you can get through levels your own way.
Wow. That is not the direction I was thinking you were going to go with this, but so basically, it sounds like it's almost like the magnesis power of Link in Breath of the Wild. where
Sure,
you
but
can kind of like control it and like move it up to where you need it to be, and then use stasis to freeze it in place, kind of
yeah, like
situation.
like a blown up version of that. If yeah.
Okay. All right. Would this utilize any kind of fun gimmicks for the Switch 2 in any way, or is this just like kind of like a straightforward? It would control more conventional.
I mean, I don't know if I guess we don't know what the Switch 2 if it has any unique gimmicks outside of whatever the Switch had. Like, it probably have, like,
I
motion
assume it has motion controls
controls,
and
so
HD rumble.
maybe there's a first person mode where if you detach the Joy Cons, each Joy Con acts as one of Mario's hands, and then you can kind of like almost like a conductor, just sort of like move objects in front of you. Like, I'm gonna use my right hand to bring that platform over here, and then my left hand to take the platform away from that Goomba so he falls into the abyss.
Wii Music, it's back, baby.
There we go.
That would be fun. That would be definitely an interesting twist on the Mario 3D side. I went a little bit more kind of reading the tea leaves. I've been saying I'm of two minds here. Let me say that. I've been pretty adamant that I think that it's going to be Mario Odyssey 2. And the reason for that is that there is no DLC, meaningful DLC for Mario Odyssey 1, when it seems like it would have been so obvious to put out new kingdoms for people to like collect moons in.
Mm.
However, I'm looking at Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Bowser's Fury really felt like a beta test for the next entry in the Mario franchise. Like having kind of that open world style with the obstacle courses and the playgrounds all around it, and you can go in like complete missions, almost like Mario 64 or Mario Odyssey style, but seamless exploration, and then like occasionally like a boss battle in that same world. That could be a cool approach to it as well. So I'm kind of two minds there, but I'm gonna go with the Bowser's Fury style, where it's like big open world, go anywhere, and that would also showcase the power of the Switch 2 on a greater scale than what Bowser's Fury was able to do on Switch 1.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't think of that, and I think it's because I still have not played Bowser's Fury.
Oh, it's so good.
I know. I've played 3D World back on Wii U, but I just haven't played the Bowser's Fury stuff. I should do that at some point, especially because I'm kind of like between like, to fill the Mario gap between World Wonder and whatever's next. But yeah, that would make sense. Would you be disappointed if they didn't follow that up? Like if Bowser's Fury was really just a one-off and they never explored that idea again?
I would be, because Bowser's Fury is incredible, and it really felt like they were laying a foundation. And like there were some things that I didn't quite love about it, but like it was like, okay, this is just like a learning experience for them. They're iterating on this formula. They're going to get everything kind of right with this. The way I look at Sonic Frontiers, where it's like, okay, they obviously have never made a game like this. So there are some faults in terms of like exploration and like the way you get around. Like there's some problems.
Mm.
But at the same time, I look at Sonic Frontiers and I'm like, oh, I bet Sonic Frontiers 2 or whatever it ends up being called is going to be awesome. And look at Shadow Generations. If you played that, like that they learned a lot of lessons. They still have more lessons to learn, but like especially in like the open zone design, you could see like, oh, they saw that this sucked about Sonic Frontiers, so they implemented that in Shadow Generations, and I would imagine that they're going to implement even more learnings into the next like mainline open zone Sonic game. I think that Nintendo could do a little bit of that with Bowser's Fury and really make the next Mario game that uses that style just unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
So that's my prediction for that. Also, before we move on to that, do you think that a Mario 3D game is a launch title for Switch 2?
Yes.
I'm with you. Okay. I think it would be wild if like we still it's like, what are we, 8 years on from the last Mario game? We're more than 8 years removed from the last full 3D Mario game.
Right.
And here we are. We've gotten another 3D Zelda game in the time since. So I think it's time. Mario is ready to come back in a big way on 3D. But we recently got a 2D Mario game, and that's where we're going next. The Super Mario Brothers 2D. The last entry on that was obviously Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which came out on Switch in 2023. Do you have anything for this one?
Yes, and I've said this idea before. I might have even said it in this podcast in the past. I don't remember. But the only thing I want, or not the only thing, but the main thing I've wanted for 2D Mario is just give me a Super Mario Brothers game that is just starring Waluigi and Wario. Like
Oh my
just
god.
and it just is a bizarro version of a 2D Mario game. And this was something that I had conceptualized years and years and years ago when I worked at GameStop with my old manager. And the idea of it, and I can't take credit for this because this part was his idea, where he was like, you know what they should do? They should have you run from right to left instead of left to right like a normal.
We already got that though with the Luigi DLC for New Super Mario Brothers U.
But like not all the levels are like that. Like this is the whole game is like that. Like you just go
Okay.
backwards basically the whole game. And then you just have all the like almost like anti versions of all the power-ups. So like we already have the poison mushroom, but just like more of that kind of stuff of like, oh, here's something that might normally help Mario, but it's got like an adverse effect here. Or if it or maybe it is like it would be bad for Mario, but it somehow is good for Wario and Waluigi. So it's like, I don't know. Superstar.
Like the poison mushroom from Mario, the Japanese Mario 2 is actually good for them.
Yeah, like maybe just poison all the enemies that they touch, and it's like, oh,
Hmm.
this is great. But it's just like it would just let Nintendo just pretty much just go insane. like just take the most insane people on the Mario team and give them just carte blanche to just be as weird as possible. Because Waluigi and Wario are super weird. And plus, this is the closest. This is really just a Trojan horse to get Waluigi his own game, even if he has to share it with Wario.
So wait a second. Did you just, instead of giving me an entry for Super Mario Brothers 2D, you gave me a Wario Land game, basically?
Well, I mean, this is Mario series, technically. They're in the Mario series. Mario can be in there. He could be like the what if the twist is that Mario is the final boss instead of Bowser? Like they're just coming after Mario and Luigi.
Hmm.
Like they're
Well, I
the
mean,
last thing.
well, I never played Mario Land 3, which was Wario Land. Was Mario the final boss in that game?
It's been so long since I've beaten that game. I don't I don't think so. I think it was someone else, but I do not remember. It's been so long.
I know Mario was the guy who was capturing Donkey Kong in when Donkey Kong Jr.
Mhm. Like it's like Mario and technically does nothing wrong. Like he's just being good guy Mario, but whatever he does that is good in their minds,
He's
Mario has
stealing the
wronged
spotlight.
them. Yeah. So like you're seeing the world through their kind of warped perception of Mario. And so they're like, well, we gotta take this guy down. It's like
You
we get
know,
to see why they hate Mario and Luigi so much.
I, I could see it, and like when you started this, I was like, "What are you doing, Marcus?" And now I'm sold. You've sold me on this concept. Yeah, I'm in on that.
There
I
you
would
go.
love to see them like, just kind of looking at him like, look at that self-righteous plumber, like doing all these good deeds, always saving Peach and defeating Bowser. Like they don't realize that we're the real heroes, and we're gonna show them.
It's the same energy as the Mario Tennis opening when they draw the face on the poster and like, yeah, look at you, Mr. Eyeball. Like they're just jealous haters. Like just give me a Mario game where you play as just two player haters and they're just trying to take
Yes.
down Mario because they have nothing better to do and they're just salty the whole time.
Oh my
And
god.
and honestly, like I love 2D Mario, but I feel like even with Wonder, people are still of the opinion that 2D Mario is kind of bland compared to 3D Mario. So this is kind of how you flip that perception on its head. It's like, oh, you don't think we can be exciting with 2D Mario anymore? Well, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is a great answer, honestly, and it makes mine seem really boring because I loved what they did with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I don't want that to get stale. But when I was doing the Game Informer cover story for Mario Wonder, I was talking to Takashi Tezuka and Shiro Mori, who, Tezuka has been with the Mario franchise since the very first Super Mario Brothers, and Shiro Mori, I think, joined with Sunshine, and he was the director of Mario Wonder. And they told me they had like hundreds upon hundreds of Wonder effects that were left on the cutting room floor. And it's like, I don't know if I would want like specifically Super Mario Brothers Wonder 2, but I bet some of those were not only pretty good, but expandable and scalable and able to be turned into a full on gimmick. So, in kind of the same sense, I would love, like, I agree with you that I would love for them to kind of go in the weird angle of things. Like, I think that Super Mario Brothers Wonder was the best 2D Mario game since Mario World. And I think they should lean into kind of the weirder side of that because, like you said, like I think that the new Super Mario Brothers series was very good, but it was kind of bland. Mario Wonder really breathed a lot of life into that with like the fun music, the fun effects. The animations were so much more lively than what we got in the art style of the new Super Mario Brothers series. I just want to see all that continued. Maybe not necessarily have the wonder effects be like, okay, well, there's a different gimmick every stage that you do it and it just changes the entire stage. But maybe take a few of those and implement those into gimmicks that are extremely weird. And maybe it's just like that one level, similar to how we've seen in the past, where it's like, okay, you get to like the end game of Super Mario World, and it's like, okay, well, this one you can you just get this balloon and it turns you into like Balloon Mario, and then you're floating through this level. And that's the only time you really see that power up at that scale. Like, yeah, there are times where you go up in the like you have to use that power up to get up to a higher level, but it's not the entire level. Like, give us like this stage is the weird stage where you do this power up and then you just move on. It's not like a wonder effect, it's just the entire level. And give us just let the Mario team, which created all these super amazing wonder effects, just let them flex their muscles and give us the ability to get weird with Mario, similar to how you were saying, but I'm approaching it from like, yeah, give us Mario, Luigi, Toad, Peach, the Yoshis, all the characters that we got to play as Daisy in Mario Wonder. Even expanded out to Wario and Waluigi. If you want to combine our ideas, make it so if you select Wario and Waluigi, there are like those weirdnesses to it, and also improve co-op. Like, give us online co-op. That was the big thing that was missing in Mario Wonder. Also, make it more difficult outside of like the final challenges. The final challenges in Mario Wonder were very difficult, very challenging, very fun, but the rest of the game was pretty easy. I 100%ed it before it even came out while I was reviewing it, and it was not the hardest Mario game. I miss the challenge of Super Mario World, and I would love to see that brought back as well. Like, yeah, make it approachable to anybody, but give us like kind of like the Star World of Super Mario World, that level of challenge in the end game, if nothing else, of Mario Wonder,
I think
whatever the new one's called.
I like to think ever since they made original Super Mario Brothers 2, Japanese Mario 2, the super hard game, that they saw how people reacted to that, and since then have been like, well, these have to be like borderline baby mode now, because we tried to give you guys a super hard game from the get-go and you guys couldn't handle it. So it's like, oh, now you want it again. Okay. Like it's like now you want to see, you think you can handle it, but then we put a little spice and then you're like, oh, it's too hot. Give me some milk.
Though that, we didn't really have a choice because they just didn't even bring it to the US until they put out Mario All-Stars on SNES.
In my mind, they QA tested it with US players and they just rejected it. They're like, this is too hard. So they're like, we can't, these Americans, they can't handle it.
It's entirely possible.
Just give them the baby mode from now on. They gotta earn the real stuff in like Star World and stuff if they want that.
And we did earn the real stuff in Star World. Marcus, we're moving on to the next one. This is still Mario focused, and I think for some of these smaller franchises, we can go a little bit quicker than we were doing with like the juggernauts that are the Mario games. And then later on, we'll get to some other bigger ones. But Mario Maker, that is one that I love, and I wish was a bigger hit because the last one was Super Mario Maker 2 on Switch in 2019. And from what I understand, pretty underwhelming as far as sales are concerned. But I loved it, and the last one they added the Super Mario 3D World side-scrolling style, and that also gave you like a new like dash ability. It basically transposed the 3D style of 3D World into a 2D ability, and it was so much better, I think, than the new Super Mario Brothers style. But what we got with that also was the ability to make worlds and like connect your levels together in one seamless world, which was really cool. They had some updates to that, which that world thing was part of it. They also gave like the special power up that made your character look like the Mario 2 counterpart, even though it seemed like Mario 2 was going to be like US Mario 2 was going to be like a style they were going to put out post launch. and because the sales were underwhelming, they're just like, oh, let's just put it as a power up, and that's unfortunate. But where would you like to see the Mario Maker franchise go from here?
3D Mario Maker.
Yes, alignment. That was mine as well.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can do 2D Mario Maker a third time just because the second game didn't really light the world on fire. I think people are maybe a little over it. And again, like we were saying before, like I think modern Mario fans look at 2D Mario like as lesser than 3D Mario. So just do what has worked. Like give people the ability to make their own like Mario 64 and like have a robust tool set. It would obviously have to be more robust because it's 3D. So it could be something like maybe even the caliber of like Dreams, like Media Molecules Dreams.
Oh my god.
And just put all the 3D Mario power up, like Flood is in there. The little stars from Galaxy, they're in there. Like you can just build, like you can make your own Galaxy 3 if you were like good enough, basically.
Or
But it
just
could
put
also,
Galaxy 2 on Switch because they never brought it over for some reason.
well, that's why I don't ever bring it. They're like, you can just make it in here. Isn't that the same thing? But like, what if Galaxy 2 had Flood? You could do that.
Oh my god. That
So
sounds like awesome. And I don't know how they would make that happen, but like I'm just imagining because I don't know about you, but I loved kind of trying to reimagine Mario 64 levels as 2D Mario levels in Mario Maker 2. Like I made like Bob on Battlefield in Mario Maker 2. And then what was the Thwomp's Tower? What's the second level in
oh,
Mario in Super Mario 64?
ooh, you're asking the wrong guy.
Womp's Fortress. I said Thwomp's Tower. I was close. I remade that, and then I was like, oh, I should just keep going, and then I didn't. But Bob on Battlefield was a lot of fun to recreate because that's such an iconic level. And I would love to do the opposite and recreate like some of the linear levels and like reimagine those as open area 3D style Mario levels.
Yeah, I think also I think they can, as complex as the tool set can be, I think Nintendo's always been very good about still finding ways to simplify it enough to make it as approachable as it needs to be, especially for like younger gamers. Like this is one of those things where like it's not my problem to figure out how to make it work. It's just like you guys can probably crack that code and make it happen to where I can put together a semi-competent Mario 64 stage and not have to like rip my hair out figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, not to have like a programming degree.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're aligned on that. That would be amazing if they could figure out a way to do it. If anybody's going to figure it out, it's Nintendo. So,
Exactly.
I mean, Dreams obviously had a great community surrounding it. We've seen some other game creation tools, but I think that if Nintendo really went all in and figured out a way to do it. Now, let me ask you this. Would you rather have a Mario Maker or a Zelda Maker? Like a 3D Mario Maker or a 2D Zelda Maker?
So is I think I would go Zelda just because it's different, and I would like to see what that would look like. There is a game that is out there, and I don't think it's the only one, but there's a game called Questmaster that went into early access last year that I did a video preview for GI. I think Kyle and I did like an NGT. But that's literally it. Is that it replicates the Link to the Past art style, and it just lets you make your own Zelda dungeons, and you can share them online and all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
But I played a good bit of that, and it was pretty cool and it was really well done. So it was like, oh, someone's already kind of scratching that itch. We'll see once it goes 1.0 if it manages to be a big hit or not.
It has very positive reviews on Steam. And when are they saying this is going to be available? Full release is planned to include more than 6 dungeon themes, the full soundtrack, and many more in your creation.
Yeah, I think they're going 1.0 this year at some point. I want to say to 2025, I think I read is what they're shooting for.
Well, they came out in May 29th, 2024 to early access, and there it says, if everything goes to plan, we're approximating about half a year in early access. So it's been, I guess, did not go according to plan because they're past the half year mark now.
Right. Which, I mean, early access, it rarely does. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's an indictment on them.
No, but it looks very cool. You're right. It does replicate kind of that Link to the Past art style. The gameplay feels that way too.
Yeah, from what I remember, like, it played fine. I thought the, like, UI was pretty intuitive, and I'm playing it at launch, so I have no if they I haven't checked in to see if how they've updated it since then based on the feedback. But I put together, like, a fun little dungeon fairly quickly and had a bunch of traps and enemies, and, like, you could program boss fights, you can do boss keys. This is becoming a Questmaster endorsement now, but with that said, I would like to see Nintendo with their assets and their know-how try to, like, especially, like, if it's not just Link to the Past, but if they have templates for other 2D Zeldas, like, if you could do Link Between Worlds
Oh yeah.
Maker, then that would be cool. So,
There is a game also that is on Switch called Super Dungeon Maker.
yes, yeah, that's there's been a few of those, right? Like, isn't it a series?
Yeah, there is a series.
Yeah.
I think this is the only one that's on Switch though, and it's currently on sale. I mean, I can't vouch for how I only played a little bit with it, but it's currently if you want, I don't what's the DIY edition because that is on sale. Normally
You have
it's
to build the game itself, and then the game lets you make Zelda done. Like, we just send you the code to build the actual game.
so Super Dungeon Maker is $20. If you get the DIY edition, it's currently on sale till the 26th for $2, and it's normally $22.
Mm, okay.
So I don't know what the DIY version is, but it seems like it's the better version, which is interesting. But yeah, that definitely check that out if you want a Zelda maker and Nintendo won't give it to us. Maybe they will. They told us in the Breath of the Wild Rapid Fire that Ben Reeves did way back in 2017 that they were working on a Zelda maker. I don't know if they were joking, but
Well, wasn't that what Echoes of Wisdom was originally like? It was a Zelda maker before they
oh really?
pivoted and made it Echoes of Wisdom. I think they came out in like a not like their kind of Iwata style, like behind the scenes thing where they said,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, when we were making Echoes of Wisdom, originally it was that's why you have the, you know,
Oh, so
the
it's almost like a
wand
debug
mechanic of
mode.
placing. Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, like we it was just going to be that until we decided, hey, let's put a story around it, basically.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
So,
I hadn't heard that. That's
mhm.
cool. All right, next up, Donkey Kong Country. Marcus, are you a Donkey Kong Country fan?
I adore Donkey Kong
All
Country.
right.
I
So
have.
unfortunately, it has been tough sledding for us DKC sickos. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on Wii U in 2014 was the last entry. We did get Tropical Freeze coming to Switch, which didn't really add much. It was just a remaster and added funky mode. But we are getting a remaster of Donkey Kong Country Returns, which came out in 2010 on Wii next week on Switch, which I'm very excited to revisit that game. Marcus, what do you have for me on Donkey Kong Country?
So this is almost less of a like specific idea and more of a what sort of like a business plan, I guess we'll say, for Donkey Kong going forward. And is this specifically Donkey Kong Country or just Donkey? Because I took this as Donkey Kong when I was kind
You
of
can
writing
do
my idea.
whatever you want with this. Donkey Kong Country is just kind of what the franchise has become because the last time we got like a 3D Donkey Kong game, it was Donkey Kong 64 in 1999.
Right.
So you can do either one. I'll give you free reign here. You can do a 3D game. You can do Donkey Kong like OG Donkey Kong, or you can do Donkey Kong Country.
Okay, so they're gonna make a new Donkey Kong Country. I don't have
Okay.
any specific pitches for it, but let's say they make a new one, it does well. And then they're gonna sort of adopt the Zelda template of the next Donkey Kong game after that will be a classic Donkey Kong game, but like modernized. Because they haven't really
Ooh.
done that like ever or just in a while. Like, of just like, no, 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 this is Donkey Kong. You're climbing ladders and he's throwing barrels, but we've made a brand new like 3D graphics, whatever, one of those. And then that becomes their kind of like 2D Zelda, basically, of like, hey, we'll throw you an old school entry in between the new version of this. So they're just going to go back and forth because those games presumably do well. And I don't know, let's say the standalone Donkey Kong movie that they're making helps propel interest in a Donkey Kong or more Donkey Kong games. And so, yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, you get a Donkey Country, then you get Classic DK, then you get another country, and then that's just what we're going to do forever.
This might be the year of Donkey Kong because we're getting, I mean, in your neck of the woods, we're getting Epic Universe, which is going to have the Donkey Kong Country expansion as part of Super Nintendo World. We're getting Donkey Kong Country Returns HD next week. And I think that we're going to get some sort of Donkey Kong announcement. And it would be great to see it be another Donkey Kong Country. My pitch is that you get Playtonic to do it because Retro has been busy with Metroid Prime 4. They're the ones who did the Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze games. Playtonic is made up of the people who did the original Donkey Kong Country games. I just had Kev Bayless on my show last month to talk about creating Diddy Kong and redesigning Donkey Kong for DKC. And I think that would be a really cool, like, full circle moment for them. They made basically a Donkey Kong Country game in Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. Why not give it back to them, reignite that partnership between old school Rare and Nintendo? Obviously Rare proper is owned by Microsoft now, but most of those people are no longer with Rare, the people that worked on the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy. And not only that, but when, I brought up that, like, so many, Rare alumni are at Playtonic now, Kev Bayless was very quick to point out there's also a lot of new blood in there, which are bringing a lot of really cool ideas. I would love to see the combination of what they could come up with those characters. So if you go the Donkey Kong Country route, that would be my pitch for that. I also would love like a 2D like style, like OG Donkey Kong, but like modernized. That would be really cool. Like maybe like just like a $20 eShop release. That would be really neat. An idea I had, well, I mean, the obvious one for me for like a 3D Donkey Kong would be like kind of like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but with Donkey Kong characters. Kind of linear stages with a little bit of mild exploration. Don't make it a collectathon, for the love of God, because we already saw what happened with Donkey Kong 64. But the biggest idea I have outside of the Playtonic making Donkey Kong Country, whatever, 5, 6, 6, yeah, would be Donkey Kong 99. And think like, how we've got F-Zero 99, we've gotten Tetris 99, Mario 35, which vanished into thin air for some reason.
Yeah, did it ever happen? Can we be sure?
There's no evidence. Make Donkey Kong 99. That would be a very cool way to celebrate this character. And
so this is classic Donkey Kong?
Yes. And like, you make your way through the levels, and if you lose, you're out. You can send like hindrances to the other players in your session.
So is it 99 Marios trying to climb the ladders at the same time and see who reaches the top?
Yeah, so but everybody would be in their own instance, but you can send things kind of like Tetris 99, where it's like you can send attacks if you do well. Like if you clear, like say you get the hammer and you destroy like a set number of barrels, you get like a power up that you can send. Like, okay, well now like more fireballs will come on like these other like player screens.
Right. Ooh,
Kind of like that. Yeah, that would be a fun way to like celebrate one of the most seminal releases in Nintendo history.
Yeah, I like that we both have ideas to modernize classic Donkey Kong, or at least like mix it up a bit.
But yeah, so those are my ideas for the big man himself, Donkey Kong. I just, I would love to see more DKC, because that was such a fantastic franchise, and one that I am still absolutely in love with. I never did play Donkey Kong Country 3. I will say that, which I've heard is the weakest of the original trilogy.
Yeah, it's the one I I remember the least. I know I've played it. I've been meaning to revisit it on the Switch Online just to see, like, is this actually good? Because it's the one I have just the least memory outside of, like, I played it and I probably liked it, but I couldn't tell you much more than that because I was a kid. So yeah, that would be weird. I feel like there's people probably screaming at us that neither of us said a new Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think of putting that in there because, like, I was focused so much on the platforming side. But yeah, you remember Rare was working on Donkey Kong Racing for GameCube before they were sold to Microsoft, and that ended up resulting in the cancellation of that game. But there is a trailer that you can find on YouTube that was shown at E3 that year, and it's just like all the Donkey Kong characters riding on animals. So like, there's a cool idea there. But yeah, Diddy Kong Racing is one that I would love to see come back in some form or another. But it's also tough because Nintendo has had such incredible success with Mario Kart. Like, look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's sales, and it's just like one of their greatest selling games of all time. And it's like, yeah, maybe they just want to focus on that and like the way that franchise prints money, and put Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong and all them in that series as they have. But it would be cool to see them branch out. And we can talk more about the future of the Mario Kart series in a little bit here. But Marcus, we're not going to talk about Metroid's 3D side because we have a 3D Metroid on the horizon. Do you have any hopes for that, though? Like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond?
Oh, I'm super excited for that, especially because Retro's on it. So Yeah, like I love Metroid Prime. So that one I am anticipating quite a bit. It's up there as one of my most anticipated games of the year.
Is there anything you hope is included in that? Since we're not going to do a full like, what do you want to see in the next 3D Metroid? Like, what do you speculate? Like, what's like a thing you hope is in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond?
This is weird because it's like a glass half empty. What I hope isn't in it is like any sort of like Dark World, Light World stuff. Because like I do like Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, but like the shifting between the two worlds I thought kind of got a bit messy after a while and a little tedious. And I was remember getting tired of like, oh, I got to go back to the other world to do this thing. I don't know if I want to do that, or and just having to keep track of all that. So let's not do that again. I guess. Anything else, I'm pretty game for. Like I honestly could not predict what they're going to do in terms of mechanics or story. So I'm kind of just like arms wide open. Like just give me what you got. Just don't do that one thing again.
All right, Scott Stapp, arms wide open. You know what? I am excited to see what Retro comes up with after so much time away from the franchise and like all the ideas that I'm sure they've kicked up and getting the juices flowing again with Metroid Prime Remastered, which was incredible.
Yes.
I very much excited for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, even though I didn't play 2 or 3 because I was just like, they don't look as good to
Oh,
me.
you've never played 2 and 3?
And then
Really?
they seem to refuse to put them on Switch because I think they realized that Metroid Prime 1 was like where the franchise peaked.
It is the best one, but 2 and 3 are also good games. They're just less good than Prime.
Mm.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, Marcus, Metroid's 2D side, is there anything you would like to see after the last entry was Metroid Dread on Switch in 2021?
Yes. So Dread follow up, where, and this is a little bit spoilers for Metroid Dread. So here's your warning if you don't want to know. But based on how that game ends, she is now has full on Metroid abilities. And that is where the title of Metroid now refers to as her. Like this game gets away from her fighting Metroids finally because now she is the Metroid in question.
Ooh.
But it's going to be like, I've written down in my notes verbatim, Metroid abilities as a Super Saiyan style power up where she can just pop it off. Like she's like Samus, but then I don't know, maybe you have a meter where she's like, oh, Super Saiyan, and then she just becomes Metroid mode. Like at the end of Dread when she does the crazy like rage thing, like that's just like a power up now.
Metroid mode, yes.
Yeah.
It's like mouthful mode in Kirby.
Just like it.
She swallows a car and drives around.
But I mean, maybe she like in Metroid fashion, she could just like drain enemies of their life force and whatever little perks you want to give her and stuff.
Absorb their powers.
Yeah,
just like Kirby.
Just like Kirby. Yeah, is Kirby a Metroid? Is that
no, Kirby's a Pokemon, very obviously.
But yeah, like just have that be them and just build a game around that mechanic of like, what if Samus had all these Metroid abilities that maybe she can only activate when her meter's full, and maybe the meter drains after a while, so she can't hold it indefinitely because she's still like maybe in the story she's still mastering how to like control that part of her. It's almost like a werewolf to an extent. But yeah, I think that's where you go with Dread. And
what about kind of playing off that idea? What about if that meter builds and you can use it, but the trade-off is it destroys her suit and she becomes Zero Suit Samus and she's very vulnerable, and it only has like kind of like the pistol, and you have to go around collecting the parts of her suit to get her fully armored again. Like like her suit literally explodes off her and you have to go around in the environment that you are in collecting the pieces of the suit. So there's a trade-off of like, yes, you have this extreme power that makes you this unstoppable killing machine, but then once like whatever time limit they put on it or whatever like amount of power you can shoot out, like you are extremely vulnerable for like the next however many minutes it takes you to collect the suit.
See, I would be afraid if that would become tedious and discourage using it if you have to collect like 6 pieces of armor every time you pop this ability off.
Like, that's the give and take. It makes it so, I mean, Metroid is a difficult franchise.
I think I don't know.
Dread.
I kind of want it to be a little bit more of a power fantasy of like, if you've stayed alive and have killed enough things to get this meter for like a few seconds, you are God, basically.
Okay, so like basically you have to stay alive long enough for the meter to charge. If you die or if you like maybe get hit, it like removes some of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you kind
Okay.
of, it's like a fighting game meter. Like you kind of work your way up to it, and like it rewards you for like good performance.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Especially if the game is as hard as Dread was, then
Oh
that would
boy.
be an achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds awesome, and I think that I'm right there with you. Like that was kind of along the lines of what I was thinking as well, is like, let's just like I don't want it to, I want it to be the opposite direction that they went with Dread, where it's like you felt really helpless in a lot of that game because those Emmy robots would just like kill you basically immediately unless you hit the timed button press. And they obviously you do get the power up to be able to blow them away, but like that's after several stealth sequences, which were inspired by some of the sequences in Fusion, the SAX sequences in Fusion. But yeah, now that she has like this infusion with the Metroid, like yeah, give us something cool that allows us to do that. Uh, yeah, I'm with you there. Print
Nice.
it, ship it. Also,
There-
we talked about Kirby. I said he's a Pokemon. My headcanon is that Kirby is the actual. I know that the actual in universe canon for Pokemon is that Mew seemed to be like failed experiments to create, or Ditto seemed to be failed experiments to create Mewtwo. That's why the Dittos are all over the science lab or the
hmm.
power plant. My headcanon is it was failed experiments to create Kirby because Kirby can absorb powers, and Ditto can transform into other Pokemon
So you're
just by
saying
seeing them.
Kirby was a mistake?
No, Kirby was the successful
Oh, he's
experiment.
the success. Okay, got
Ditto was the mistake.
it. Okay. Oh, poor
That's
Ditto.
why he's like a blob that looks like a melted Kirby.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. Huh.
Well, I mean that's the fan like canon as well. Is that like Ditto was the failed experiment to clone Mew, and Mewtwo was the
Right.
successful experiment to
Yeah,
clone Mew.
I remember hearing that in the schoolyard back in the day.
So yeah. All right. Well, we've derailed this conversation. Let's go to Star Fox.
I
So
feel so bad for
technically,
Star Fox.
the last entry of Star Fox, funnily enough, was technically Star Fox 2 because it never saw the light of day until the SNES Classic console in 2017. But the latest developed Star Fox game was Star Fox Zero on Wii U in 2016, which also released alongside a kind of strategy game called Star Fox Guard, where you played as Slippy and I think his uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Slippy, who could forget? Is it weird that Star Fox 2 was the most fun I'd had with Star Fox in 64 when I
Really?
played it?
Okay.
I liked it. I was maybe it's because it was like it's old school. It was like, oh, this is the Star Fox I know.
Did you play
Um,
Assault?
no, I didn't really wait. Oh, that was the DS one, right?
No, no. Oh, wait. Which one am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the one that I think Bandai Namco developed.
I thought Assault. In my head, I have a DX box art, but there were some weird handheld ones in there. I could have sworn Assault was one of them.
Let's see here. I'm getting to the bottom of this. Star Fox Command was the DS one. Star Fox Assault was the GameCube one that Bandai Namco developed.
Okay, no, because I never had a GameCube, so no, I didn't play that one.
That one was pretty fun. Like it was, I was not the biggest fan of Star Fox Adventures because it was just like, oh, this is not what I want with Star Fox.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because like they gave you the teaser in the beginning of Star Fox Adventures where it's like, oh, you're in the R wing and it feels really great and it's like modern graphics at the time because it was GameCube.
Mm.
And then it's like, oh, you immediately crash land on this planet and you no longer have your R wing and you're fighting dinosaurs and it's like, man, you teased me just enough that I wanted this modern. And then Bandai, or I guess it was
You had
just
us in the
Namco at
first
the time.
half.
They really did have us in the first half, and by the first half, I mean like the first 2 minutes of the game, and then it never went. I mean, I think there were a few levels scattered throughout that had that. It's
Yeah.
been very long since I played Star Fox Adventures, but Assault had some cool stuff going on where you could get out of there were levels where you could get out and walk around on foot and use like Fox's gun, like in Smash Brothers.
Mm.
There's some cool ideas in there, but what do you want for a new Star Fox game on Switch 2?
So I have two quick ones. I think I'm still not confident that Nintendo knows what it wants to do with Star Fox. So I think a new Star Fox is going to be sort of the basket that they toss every gimmick that the Switch 2 might have into to try to promote the Switch 2's capabilities. Of like, I don't know, the new Star Fox has utilizes AR cards and motion sensing and glassless 3D and anything else, any other bells and
Oh
whistles
God.
that this console can do. Whatever that weird ring on the back of the Switch 2 is, the next Star Fox uses it in some way.
Capture
And
energy to power the R Wing. Okay.
yeah, they're like, oh, the R Wing's like slowly drifting to the ground because it's running out of power. You're gonna have to charge your Switch for an hour if you want to keep playing. And you're like, all right, great, this is fun. So that would be terrible. And then the other quick idea that probably is never going to happen is Star Fox Metroid crossover game.
Ooh,
There's
that's
no reason why
interesting.
those two universes can't exist. Space is a big place. Who's to say Samus can't ever fly by the R wing and they kind of pass by each other, and then they're like, hey, like Star Fox and his team get the distress call, like, oh, like they encounter Metroids for the first time,
They're
and they're
both
like,
mercenaries.
yeah, and they're like, we don't know what to do with these. We've never seen these before. And then Samus shows up too because she's a bounty hunter. They basically show up at the same job, and they're just kind of pointing at each other like, who are you? And then they just have to work together because they need Samus's intel because they don't know what Metroids are, and then Samus needs them because I don't know reasons. You got to come up with something.
Hey, they've met
But,
on the Smash battlefield.
and yes, and they'll reference that, and it'll be really weird. But like, aren't you the chick that knocked me off of the Pokemon stage at one time?
Remember when you threw me into that exploding electrode?
Yeah, I've not forgotten that. I'm not happy about that. But yes, you get the big space epic that the Nintendo fans have been waiting for. It's Metroid Cross Star Fox.
All right, I would be down for that. That would be a cool. I mean, it's much better than them just letting Star Fox die on the vine, which is what they've been doing the entire Switch generation. I mean, we got
Yeah, I think
Starlink.
it's been going back longer than that.
Yeah. So my thought is Retro Studios. I covered this probably 2 years ago now. One of their former artists put out that he had submitted an official pitch to Nintendo for a Retro Studios developed Star Fox game, and it kind of used like the same style of controls and gameplay as Star Fox 64, but modernized. And there was kind of like this choice that you had to play. It really played into kind of like the mercenary like story of Fox, where it takes place right after the events of Star Fox 64, and they're rebuilding the Lilat system like from the ravages of the war, but there's still like holdouts from Andross's army. And basically you control Star Fox, and you choose which missions you want to go on. You go around on like, okay, well, over here in this planet we go and we have to help the locals fight back the Andross forces that are remaining, and you get compensated for this because you're mercenaries, and you have to choose how much money you keep to improve your equipment versus how much money you send back to Corneria for the rebuilding efforts. And ultimately, you want to build towards that, but like, there's a limited amount of money, so you have to like really make the decision of, oh well, I need X amount of money to upgrade my R-wing shields, but I could send this back to Corneria and get closer to kind of like the next chapter in the story. And I'm adding some of these elements, but like that's essentially the pitch that the guy who worked at Retro, I forget his name, but he had submitted that, and unfortunately, they did not accept it. But that would be a really cool way to bring Star Fox back. It would add replayability. It would add, player choice. It wouldn't just be like this 45-minute game that you would play through, and that's what Star Fox 1 was, or Star Fox 64, I'm sorry, where it was just like, okay, well, if you play this game for 45 minutes, you can get from the start of the game all the way to the end of the game. And yes, there's lots of replayability and choosing like the different paths and everything in 64, but this would actually give you like, in chapter 1, these 6 missions are available, and you can go to the planets that you want. You just have to get to a certain amount of money, and then that triggers some event. And then you go to chapter 2, and then these other missions are available. And like, you can do whatever you need to do to accumulate wealth and, make your way to the next chapter. And then it ultimately ends up in, a final boss battle.
Yeah, that'd be. I can see that. I mean, like you said, I will take. Well, I won't say I won't take anything because
Yeah, because
they've
we got
given.
Star Fox Zero.
Yeah, I will take that idea. I guess I would mess with that. I think that sounds cool. I think the key to any Star Fox game at this point is don't take him out of the ship. Stop doing that.
Mm,
Stop making him step out. Just
yeah.
keep him in the plane, man.
Yeah, I don't need like a Star Fox cover shooter or anything like that.
It's like you got plenty of characters that run around their feet. This is the only one that is like most famous for piloting a ship. Let's just keep him in the ship.
Well, that brings us to the next one, which is another character that's famous for piloting a ship, but now, because of the lack of the franchise being a thing, is most famous for being out on foot, and that is F Zero.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any pitches for how they could bring F Zero back? Because this is a dormant
Man,
franchise. It's been, what, 2004 was the last F Zero game
I
that
guess
came
if
to the
for
US?
are we counting F-Zero 99?
I mean, technically, I guess that is the most recent one, but like, it's what 2005 was when F Zero GP Legends came to Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. Um, man, it's I don't I don't know if I have anything specific for F-Zero other than whatever you do, it needs to get and it probably won't get this, but it needs like a Mario Kart 8 style push behind it of like
Mhm.
it needs that much attention given to it in terms of like the number of stages, the creativity of the stages, the detail in the writers in terms of just the differences between them, the number of I guess cars there are. Like I don't know what gimmick you attach to that to separate it. Um, but the only other thing, and maybe this would be a good show of the hardware, because F Zero has always been about speed.
Mhm.
So like whatever you make, it just needs to have that like sense of speed that separates it from Mario Kart and other Nintendo racers, where you're just like, oh my, like it's basically, and maybe it's always been this, but I don't think I connected the dots to now. Like it needs to be Nintendo's Wipeout, you
Oh,
know?
100%. Yeah, I mean, that it basically leads into my pitch, which is like, just make this a hardware showcase. Like, my idea is that you launch the Switch 2 with a 3D Mario and an F-Zero game that really shows that this Switch 2 is substantial leap ahead from the Switch 1 hardware, because 3D Mario, I mean, if you had it like kind of Bowser's Fury where it's big open area, like that might showcase that like maybe this couldn't run on Switch 1. But at the same time, we had Tears of the Kingdom running on Switch 1. So like, would that really convince people that this is like a more powerful console? If you bring an F-Zero alongside and like really make it like be like this is high tech, it's really beautiful visuals, and you feel like you are going like 1,000 miles an hour, that would make it seem like this is a substantial leap forward.
Yeah, it could show off the gyroscope, like whatever, like subtle vibrations as you're steering these like rockets that you're driving, basically. Whatever screen upgrade the system gets, like it could show off, like, oh man, look how good this looks just on the screen, and especially like that it maintains that power in handheld mode
Hmm.
too would be the biggest maybe selling point of like, look how amazing this looks even in handheld. No, we spared no expense, I guess. um yeah, like I think we're kind of in the same boat of like, let that be the tech showpiece game.
Yeah, and just don't weigh it down with too many gimmicks. Like you mentioned a few there, which would be fine if it's like, yeah, like feel the vibrations that like reflect how like, you're steering and everything, but like
Yeah,
don't do what Star Fox Zero did where it's just like let's just bury the gameplay in like this second screen experience, or like this has to be motion controls. Like yeah, let
yeah,
us use motion controls if we want to, but I really want to just have it be like a fast pace. Like I don't know if you saw Fast Racing Neo or Fast. It was basically like an independent
yeah,
version of F Zero, and
yeah,
Fast Racing RX or something like that was actually a launch title for Switch One. It was an indie game that was basically like, oh, this is the closest thing we're probably ever going to get to an F Zero game ever again.
mm.
But yeah, so next up is another kind of niche title that hasn't gotten new entry in quite a while. Marcus, did you ever play Rhythm Heaven?
Very little. I played. There was one on Wii, wasn't there?
So the last entry was Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix on 3DS in 2015, but that was kind of like a greatest hits thing. But the last all original entry was in fact Rhythm Heaven Fever on Wii in
Yeah,
2012.
I remember playing that in college with friends, and that's the only one I've ever played. I've always wanted to go like play the handheld ones, just because people love them and they seem fun, and I like rhythm games. So
The pitch is kind of like it's almost like WarioWare, but it's all music based.
yeah. So like, I mean, I guess for those games, it's all about the mini games, right? Like just add new exciting mini games. I don't know what sort of again, not knowing what if the Switch 2 brings any sort of like new hardware gimmicks that you can play around with for the mini games outside of just improved motion controls or improved vibration or whatever. But I guess lean into that stuff, like dual Joy-Con gameplay, whatever you want to do. But just pack that thing with mini games, and I guess the don't maybe make it like a rehash
Mm,
collection thing, like make it an all new original entry, because I think that's would be the most appealing thing. Like you've never seen these games before. And you're like, okay,
yeah. My selling point for this series would be if they just did like loaded it up with the most iconic songs from Nintendo.
okay.
Like,
Did they usually do that for those games? Like, are
I don't think so. I think it's, I mean,
all
maybe there
original
are
stuff?
some, but like, I think that like, I have not played a ton of the Rhythm Heaven. Like, I played Mega Mix on 3DS, but like, I think that it's mostly like original songs.
Okay, then yeah, I mean that would be cool, especially if
Like,
they're like remixes, like some
yeah,
cool.
cool remixes. Like, we're getting Nintendo music on our phones. Like, dip into that catalog and like maybe even do like some sort of like synchronization where it's like when new stuff gets added to that, it gets added to the game as well. And that also is like synergy between those two things. I don't know.
Just
There's some creative way they can do it.
make them all trap remixes.
Bad Bunny coming in with the trap remix of the Overworld theme.
Yeah, give me like the Travis Scott cut of the Mario athletic theme.
Oh my god. All right. Well, we don't have to waste too much more time on that since that's a pretty niche franchise. But here's one that I think has a lot of love behind it. That is Kirby.
Hmm.
So the last entry was technically Return to Dreamland Deluxe on Switch in 2023, but the latest actual entries were Forgotten Land and Dream Buffet, which both hit Switch in 2022.
Forgot about Dream Buffet.
Yeah, Dream Buffet.
Kirby's a weird one. 'Cause, I mean, they make like 19 of them per Nintendo console, and they're all tend to be. They always throw some weird ones out there when in between like a traditional Kirby game. I think that the next Kirby will be pretty like a follow up basically to Forgotten Land, because that one reviewed very well, and
Hmm.
I assume it sold like good enough. So I think they kind of expand on that idea. They're like, hey, this was cool. Let's see what more we can like. Any ideas that we either had on the cutting room floor or just new stuff, but just like blow that idea out a bit more. What I would actually like is
All
a
right.
new Epic Yarn, because I really love
Ooh.
it. I really loved Epic Yarn. I might be the only person that loves that game as much as I did, but that was like my favorite Kirby game for a while. And it's weird because it's like the only Kirby game where you don't do Kirby stuff. Like he doesn't suck people up in that game. So maybe you add that to just complete the like Kirbiness of it, like just yarn but sucking up. But I love the presentation of it. I thought it played well as a platformer. I thought the yarn thing where you're just yanking elements of the stages and unraveling enemies was like really cool. So I honestly I would love just like a modernized version of that. Like just give me a
Hmm.
straight Epic Yarn sequel.
Here's what I want to make sure that they do for Kirby, whatever they do next. Keep it a platformer. Don't give us like Rainbow Curse or like Epic
Hey,
Yarn is the closest that I could get to being like, okay, this gimmick is cool. Keep that, but like play off of the success of Return to Dreamland Deluxe or Forgotten Land. Though, like whether they want to go 2D or 3D, keep it in the platforming or action platforming realm.
what about pinball? Would you take pinball?
Pinball's fine. I'd rather get a Pokemon pinball, but I think that keep like a successor to Forgotten Land would really be awesome with new powers, all like maybe
Even
a bit more, a
bigger
bit
mouth
vaster.
mode.
Oh yeah,
His
bigger.
mouth. We've made his due to the with the power of the Switch 2, he can
His,
swallow bigger things now. Now he
uh,
just looks like a bus. Like he's just
I was thinking more of like the bigger maps, but yeah, bigger mouthful mode is also mouth overflowing mode, I guess.
yeah, like he swallows like a cruise ship. He's just walking around like that.
All right. So anything for the 2D side? Like I could see it almost being like a modern. I would almost like a Kirby trilogy where it's the like modern remakes of Return to Dreamland, Dreamland, Dreamland or Return. God, Kirby's Dream Land 2, and Superstar. That would be a fun one, even though like there's also a Kirby's Adventure mixed in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Just like kind of like a modern remake of that, like because some of those games are a little bit unapproachable for people. Yes,
Mhm.
there's Dreamland, Dreamland 2, and Adventure, I think would be a good one. But also Superstar, Dreamland 3 exists. Like, if you give us like a modernized remake that's just like one continuous adventure of those, almost like I'm thinking kind of like the Sonic Origins collection. Just make those games like more approachable for people who maybe didn't play them back in the day.
Yeah, steal Bandai's idea for that what was Shadow Labyrinth, that Pac-Man action game that's coming out.
Yeah, I'm
Just
all in on that.
just straight up steal that, like make Kirby a little familiar for like a cool warrior guy, and just have him going around eating stuff with his little, like, I don't know, maybe it's King Day. King Day teams up with Kirby, but you're controlling KDD, and he's like swinging, you're like smashing stuff with his hammer, and then every now and then Kirby pops in and he just starts eating stuff. It's the and then the whole storyline is, can they coexist? It's like a dysfunctional tag team in wrestling. Like, all right, any day now, someone's going to turn on the other, but is it now? I don't know. It adds the tension that we've all wanted from Kirby. There you go.
All right, Marcus, we're going to move on to one that I don't really play a ton of, so I might have to rely on you here a little bit. Are you a Fire Emblem guy?
Kind of. I've only played a few.
Okay.
I need to play more because I am a tactics fan in general.
Same.
So it's almost like shameful that I've played so few Fire Emblem games. Like I haven't played Three Houses, and I haven't played Engage was the most recent one. Yeah,
Engage came out in 2023.
Yeah, I have Engaged. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I started it and I fell off.
No, you were not engaged.
I was not engaged with by Engage.
So yeah, what do you let's see. So like the big things with Fire Emblem that people have seemed to latch on to, at least with Three Houses, with like the persona-ness of it, like the relationship building and the school stuff. And I know Engage kind of got away from that, and some people were bummed about it. So maybe you pivot back the other way with the next one, where it's like it's full on like Hogwarts Legacy of like, hey, the school's back, but now you're like you're spending even more time going to classes and learning how to be a Fire Emblem person, and we added more houses, like, because that's
Fire
Three
Emblem
Houses had
8 houses.
I mean, Three Houses had that like Hogwarts vibe to it, right? Of the just different houses, and everyone had their like, this is the best house and that. So it's like, let's just double down on that. Let's add more houses. Let's just straight up do the Goblet of Fire storyline. Just have like the house cup. And then somewhere in between that, are you having these battles where the students are getting permanently killed and you never see them again?
I mean, yeah, I do like that approach. I think that it would be cool to have, really lean into like the relationship building aspect. Maybe lean into a little bit of like XCOM-esque strategy and tactics, where it's like, there, just because you have the drop on somebody, maybe there's like a statistical chance that you don't hit them. Or like, like you can recruit different characters to join your team. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be like a school setting, but like, there's a war that breaks out and you're representing your kingdom and you have to recruit new people, and like you can kind of create those characters and they'll play into the story. But like, yeah, I mean, having the relationship building would make it even more devastating when one of those characters dies in a battle.
What if it'd be funny thematically if they made the games set in the current day, because they're all kind of like medievally-ish. But what if you just had like 2024 Fire Emblem and all the characters were like real world soldiers wearing like fatigues, and they're just in a boot camp, and then it just becomes like it's the Hurt Locker, but it's Fire Emblem.
Then we're just doing XCOM.
Well, but like, I mean, I guess, yeah, to an extent. But yeah, but I think that's what I want. I just pitch it to myself, like, give me the Hurt Locker, but it's Fire Emblem.
Oh my God. Then you do Fire Emblem 2025 Warriors, where it's just like it's modern military fatigues, but you're just slashing through hundreds upon hundreds of waves of enemies.
And it's incredibly emotional, and it makes you question just, why are we doing this to each other, guys? Like, it doesn't have to be this way.
So, Marcus, give me your pitch if you have one for Pikmin.
Um, yeah, Pikmin was tough.
Yeah.
They kind of all are. It's I hate saying they're all the same because it's not really true, but they do iterate on the same basic idea more so than maybe other Nintendo franchises do. Um, I mean, it outside of adding more Pikmin and having more appear on screen as like a text showcase of like look at all these Pikmin on the screen. Isn't that wild? You can't even see the floors. It's just Pikmin everywhere. Um, I guess I feel like what they've done and will continue to do is they've just found a way to make that formula less of a hassle. Like with Pikmin 3 adding Ochi, and that changed everything. Of like, this is so much easier to do now because of this one mechanic. So I don't know. You add two Ochis, you add a bigger Ochi, like he's like a bus now, and you can cart like 1,000 Pikmin around at once.
I believe multiple Ochis is called Ochis, kind of like
Ochis.
cacti to cactus.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or I guess
if,
Ochi would be multiple. Never mind. I blew that.
what if you did a Pikmin game where, because it's also set in space, where he meets Samus and Star Fox. and just work with me here. What if he also discovered Metroids for the first time? Like Metroids kill 10 red Pikmin, and he's like, "Oh my god, I don't know what this thing is." And then that's when Samus and Star Fox show up to go, "Hey, we're dealing with this too. You wanna hop on this
I
train?"
like that we're slowly just building towards this being subspace emissary.
Yeah, I mean, it's space. Who's this? It's infinite. All of these possibilities can be real. And it's just like, and it's establishing the cosmic Nintendo universe. All the characters that reside in space are starting to meet each other.
And then what if they met the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor, and then they had to fight Thanos?
See, I was gonna say they realize they're being assembled by an outside force. They don't know what it is. And then it turns out it's Rosalina.
Oh my god.
Like she's like, "Hey, I couldn't find Mario, but I sensed other pure of heart heroes. I need you guys to come here to my little planet, and we got to talk this out. And because there's something out there, these damn Metroids."
Sakurai is furiously taking notes as he listens to this episode.
These Metroids have killed all of my little star friends, and I heard you guys could deal with this.
Her Lumas.
I forgot. I kept wanting to call them Starfies, and that's a different character. I forgot their name for a second. But yes, all my Lumas are getting their brains sucked out by Metroids.
All right, so I don't know.
So basically, that means I have no ideas for Pikmin.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Pikmin was a hard one for me, and it really just boiled down to like, yeah, remove the barriers, maybe lean a little bit heavier on like fun artifacts from our world. I don't know, like the selling point is like, oh, you can find like a Game Boy in this game, and like I don't know, those were always fun discoveries, but I don't know.
Now they'll have also a stage that's just a bunch of discarded Labos that you just run around through.
It would be fun to find a bunch of like, oh, why are there so many cardboard boxes here? And then you build it, and it's like, oh wait, it's a Labo fishing kit.
Is that a piano? Wait a second.
It's right next to the Virtual Boy for some reason. From Pikmin to Pokemon, Marcus, this is one of the heavy hitters. Last entry was Scarlet and Violet on Switch in 2022, but we do have Legends ZA coming this year, allegedly. So what do you have for Pokemon?
So this is one where I've not kept up with the Pokemon games since really the first gen. I've only ever played half of Gold, and then the only other, it's not even new anymore, but I played Platinum on a whim, but I've not played any of the games in between because I've told myself that I will wait until they make the Pokemon game of my dreams, and then I move that goalpost back every time they make something close to it. Or they make it, but then everyone complains that it's bad. Like the one that was the first open world one that everyone said was a problem.
Scarlet and Violet?
Sure, yeah.
Actually a very good game, just like a lot of really bad technical optimization.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I guess I'll wait for that. So I've always, to this day, and this maybe is a folly of mine, but like as a child of the anime, and I used to love that anime, I always just wanted the video game version of that to like a T basically. And red and blue and yellow they provided that, but it was still like a limited version of that just because of technology. And I was like, I want the full-on 3D, no turn base. I want to see the Pokemon roaming free, and it's just this wonder world of Pokemon, and I'm just a dude in there, and it's like I wanted. I guess basically what most modern open world games could provide, but Pokemon the series has just decided not to maybe do that. So
They're very
like,
stubborn about keeping their team size small,
yeah,
but I have seen reports that they have, like, exploded in terms of staff size lately.
yeah, it's like if you gave it to Rockstar, they would make it happen. It's like I want
They
that.
would make a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah, like that. We would have gotten this already, and so like just I just want that. I just want the full on, just like, oh, this is my childhood truly faithfully brought to life, and I don't know what that looks like exactly, but just that.
Yeah, I feel like it's time for the Pokemon series to move into not even the current generation, like, just, like, 3 generations ago in terms of, like, storytelling and
Yeah.
cutscenes, and it's wild to me that this is the highest grossing entertainment franchise on the planet. It blows everything else out of the water, like Disney, like Mickey Mouse, Marvel, all these franchises just pale in comparison to the money that Pokemon has raked in its lifetime.
Could you imagine? Like, I want the emergent story moments of like walking through, I don't know, Viridian Forest, and then all of a sudden I just see, unbeknownst to my knowledge, Mewtwo blowing out from his little lab and flying through the sky like in a show, and be like, "What is that about? Like, where's who? What is that thing? Where's he going?" And then just like little things like that just happening at any given moment, in just this like world teeming with Pokemon and possibility.
It would be cool to get a actual, like, modernized version of Red and Blue, and not in the way of, like, Let's Go Pikachu and
Yeah, let's
Eevee.
go.
Like, give us, like, this is an RPG that feels like it was made in
Yeah,
2025.
like this is the Witcher 3 of Pokemon.
So that would be really cool, and that would be amazing to see them actually take, like, the ability to tell stories with, like, fully voiced characters and, like, more than, like, 3 animations per character, like, and I understand there's a ton of creatures and everything that they have to include in the game. That's why you start with Red and Blue, and I'm tired of having, like, the animations of the Pokemon when they're in battles, like, not even interacting with each other. Like, Final Fantasy X has better animations than in battle than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet did, and there was almost a quarter century between those 2 games. And it's like the fact that the Pokemon don't even really interact with each other. It's just like the camera is on one Pokemon and they, like, do, like, their little move, and they just, like, charge ahead basically, or, like, they make it look like they're shooting fire, and then the camera just switches to the Pokemon that's being attacked, and it's like sometimes it looks connected just because, like, okay, well, this Pokemon shot fire and then this other Pokemon's getting hit by fire. But other times it's like, okay, I'm gonna do tail whip, and it's the dumbest animation you've ever seen in your life. And it's like literally the Pokemon just turns around so their butt is to you, and then they just, like, move back and forth, and it goes whip, 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 whip. And it's like that's unacceptable
You're
for a
like, I
game
guess
that,
that is technically a tail whip at the bare minimum.
yeah, it's so frustrating that this franchise brings in so much money, and they they have, like, a stubborn refusal to really pour that money into creating the type of experience that every other franchise is held to in the 21st century.
It feels like Monster Hunter should be the template, right? Like you're
Yeah,
just
that'd
in
be
a big
great.
world where monsters are just independently living their lives, and then occasionally they'll run into each other and like fight each other, and you're just like, whoa, I didn't know this was gonna happen. Like pretty
That
much
would
just
be
that.
incredible. That would
Yeah.
be incredible. And, like, this, I honestly, I love the Pokemon franchise so much. Like, I like Sword and Shield more than I think a lot of people do. I even like Scarlet and Violet. People gave me crap because I gave that, I think, an 8.25 out of 10, because there is a very good game underneath that. And I had a great time with that game. It just runs like garbage on the Switch. So maybe it's a little bit ambitious for me to be like, yeah, make, like, a really high end, like, well performing game when they couldn't even make Scarlet and Violet run well. But at the same time, it's like, that's not, like you said earlier, that's not my problem to solve. That's their problem to solve.
Yes, let
So
me
I don't know.
dream.
Yeah, and if they want to just start it, so like, okay, well, we can't do the 1,000 plus Pokemon that exist in that style right off the bat because that's just way too many Pokemon to fully animate in that way. Give us just that remake of Red and Blue. There's no expectation of anything beyond the original 151, and just really go all in and lay that template. That's what they told me when I went to Game Freak back in 2019. They told me, "Let's go Pikachu and Eevee" was their way of kind of experimenting with how much work would go into making a console Pokemon RPG. And then they used the lessons they learned from that to develop Sword and Shield. And then they used the lessons of Sword and Shield's wild area to develop the open world area of Scarlet and Violet. So they could do that same thing if they really wanted to take Pokemon to the next level, but I just don't know if they feel the pressure to, because every Pokemon game that comes out sells really well.
Yeah, I mean, what else are they gonna do with that money that they're gonna win from suing the Power World developer?
Oh my god, poor Pal World. Let's go to Pokemon spin-off games, because Lord knows there's a lot of those. The last entry in the Pokemon spin-off franchise was Detective Pikachu Returns in 2023.
Oh
Before
god.
that, we got new Pokemon Snap in 2021. And then before that, we got Pokemon Cafe Mix on Switch and mobile in 2020, and Pokemon Rumble Rush on mobile in 2019. I have one that I'm very excited for, but what do you have? Do you have anything that you would like to see, like in terms of a Pokemon spin-off? Oh, we also got Pokemon TCG Pocket at the end of last year.
Yeah, never outside of Snap, never really played the Pokemon spin-off games that much. I don't know what I mean, a new Snap is easy in the sense of like you just add more Pokemon to take pictures of, and then and a little route for you to surf on to take those pictures. So I don't know what you do there outside of like adding Snapchat filters to them. I don't know.
Snapchat filters.
That'd be make
I mean,
yeah.
I think you can decorate Pokemon with like stickers and everything, or the Pokemon pictures you take it with stickers in new Pokemon Snap. So,
But I want full on like AI filters like
oh
you have in
god,
your phone now. Like just make this Pikachu look like an old man.
no thanks.
Why does my Charizard have like fake abs generated on it?
um, my pick is we just got Pokemon TCG Pocket. Did you ever play the Pokemon trading card game on Game Boy Color?
No, I
It's
played it in
available
real
on Switch
life.
Online.
I never liked the card game, and I need to play it again. I played as a kid and just did not take to it.
I loved it when I was a kid, and I went back and revisited it probably about 10 years ago on I think it was my 3DS had like it was on the virtual console,
Mhm.
and I played it and I was like, this still slaps. And I would love it if we got another Pokemon TCG single player RPG. We have the online battler that, like, we have two of those on mobile. We have Live and
Mm.
Pocket. Pocket being the one that I'm currently playing a lot. And if we could get a Pokemon trading card game that allows you to just go around, do gym battles similar to the Pokemon mainline RPG, but with like
Yeah.
deck building. That's what that Game Boy Color game is. It's just like you literally are going around. Every time you win, you get like a booster pack and you're able to add to your stuff and your collection and build your decks. Give us something like that, because that was so much fun. Keep it
Mm.
simple. Don't go too like, we got to make this like the most melodramatic thing of all time. Like, just make it about a guy who's going around or a girl who's going around and collecting cards and taking part in like the Pokemon TCG circuit in this universe where Pokemon TCG is like the biggest thing ever.
No, I disagree. I need my drama. I need my. I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. I need to play this card game with the stakes of the world on the line. Like for some reason, the world we're in, if you don't win this Pokemon card game,
I will say that every time I am playing Pokemon TCG Pocket and I get like a terrible draw and I'm like, I trusted in the heart of the cards and they betrayed me.
I've never played the RPG. Is that set in the real world where Pokemon are not real, or Pokemon do Pokemon exist but they also have a card game?
I think it's Pokemon are not real. It's just a card game, and but it's like the biggest thing ever, and like people will go on like pilgrimages, kind of like how they do in like the real, like in Pokemon's like
Yeah,
mainline games.
you drive 5 miles to the nearest Target because they got the new sets.
But no, it's on Nintendo Switch Online. If you want to go check that, like the original Pokemon TCG RPG from Game Boy Color out. It is so much fun. I might actually do that because you go around, I think there's 8 gym leaders that you go around to and fight them, and you're constantly like getting like new cards so you can add to your collection and build out your deck. It's super fun.
I should fire that up. I Now that I play TCGs, I might take to it more than I did as a kid. I actually went to a comic book store this weekend, and they were having a Pokemon tournament there, and I watched a had to at least be 50 plus old man duel who had to be a at most 10-year-old boy.
Oh
And
my
it was the
god.
funniest visual. Like they're just sitting at a little table. This old guy that looks like an accountant with his glasses, clutching his cards with this small child, and it's this intense match between and I was just like, I don't know how I would. I didn't stick around to see who won, but I was like, I don't know how you feel about this as an adult. Like, do you feel like you're taking advantage of this kid, even though this kid is probably super good? But it's very nice.
Yeah, it tends to bring out people of all ages, which is why it's, one of the most or the most successful entertainment franchise ever.
Yeah.
Pokemon. All right. We're going to kind of combine a few categories because we are starting to get up against our time limit here, but Mario spin-offs. I originally had this as Mario Sports. We're going to keep Mario Kart separate though, because I think that is worth having a separate conversation, seeing as how that's the best-selling game on the Switch. But Mario spin-offs, that could be the Mario Sports games, that could be Mario Party. What do you want? I mean, you could even just say what sport you'd like to see them. So like the most recent Mario Sports games, we had Mario Strikers Battle League in 2022. We got Mario Golf Super Rush in 2021. We got Mario Tennis Aces in 2018. Is there a sport you'd like to see them do a Mario game on, or is it just
Yes.
like another spin-off? Okay, what is it?
I want Mario Dodgeball.
Oh, I'm about that.
Like,
Yes.
just take like power ups and you're just like blasting each other, like throwing shells and stuff like that. Like, it's just dodgeball with hijinks.
I like it. I was thinking, so I went to a few places with this. One, I was like, it'd be cool to see Mario Baseball come back because that's, it's been a while. I think GameCube was the last time we got a Mario Baseball game. So
Mm.
it's been a while for that. Then I was like, Mario Basketball would be really cool. There was like a 3-on-3 Mario Basketball game, but
Yeah.
like, give us like full on like NBA Street style. Like the GameCube version, I think had
It
Mario in
did.
it.
Yes. It was so
Uh,
weird.
and then I looked at who I'm talking to right now, Marcus. It is you, Marcus Stewart, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you are quite the fan of professional wrestling.
You are correct.
I would love a Mario wrestling game.
Oh my god.
So
I
you are
love
my
this.
inspiration for that. Think of how much fun that would be. Like, even just make it like modern graphics, but based on the mechanics of something like WCW versus NWO Revenge from
It's just
N64.
the Aki engine games, but with
Yeah.
Mario.
God, that would be so much fun.
Mario No Mercy. Oh my god, oh my god. Like you could spend a whole podcast envisioning like move sets, like what's Mario's finishing move?
Oh,
Like,
God, it's
it's
so much fun to think about that. And like, I feel like they would knock it out of the park as long as they weren't too afraid to like kind of have like, Smash Brothers is one thing, having these characters like punch and kick each other. But like wrestling, it's a little bit more up close and personal than what Smash Brothers gets.
God, it's Mario and Bowser in a ladder match for the custody of Princess Peach. She's just hanging above the ring.
Really, that's just every Mario game ever.
Exactly. That's how you wrestlefy it.
What you got, like the broken glass matches?
Yeah, it's like, oh, Mario's getting close. Oh, wait, is that Kamek running in? Is that?
Oh my God, that's Kamek's music.
Yeah, it's like Bowser. His kids are basically the bloodline for Mario. Like him and like all the Koopalings, they're like his. He's the Roman Reigns, and they're the bloodline.
You hear the music from the Mario 3 bosses play over the speaker in the middle of it, and you see the Bam Bam or Boom Boom come running in.
I want to see Luigi get jumped backstage. He's just being interviewed, and he gets attacked by Waluigi.
Then we learn a lot of terrible things about all the stuff that Mario was doing behind the scenes in a documentary on
Oh, holding people
Netflix.
down, yeah. He's gonna come
Yeah.
out and try to promote some American beer at the Netflix premiere and get booed out of the building. People are gonna Mario was problematic this whole time.
Oh boy. All right, so we're gonna keep on rolling here. Like I said, we're kind of running short on time. We're skipping past things like Yoshi, WarioWare.
There's 2 I'm surprised you haven't said yet.
Well, we're
And
getting
maybe you are gonna
we're
get
saving
there.
some for the big ones for last.
Okay.
Let's see. We talked about F-Zero. What do you think about Animal Crossing? Because
Oh,
we famously Animal Crossing had its last entry on Switch 2020, as we all remember. But
mhm.
technically, I guess the last one at the end of last year, we got Pocket Camp Complete on mobile, which was just a version of the mobile game Pocket Camp that came out a couple years before New Horizons, but with all the microtransactions removed. But do you have anything for Animal Crossing?
So, this might be a little bit of a departure for Animal Crossing, so bear with me, Nintendo, but what if you combined it with Risk, the board game Risk, which is a territory control game for anyone that doesn't has never played Risk. Very fun. Takes about 9 hours to finish. Um, so like you got your little city, right? But let's say the new Animal Crossing is like a shared world where like your city exists with instances of other people's cities. Like you guys are all populating this planet at the same time. But you could take over someone else's town, not through violence, but through those like the town inspection, or like when your home gets graded every now and then. They're like, oh, happy home designer here. Wow, what a nice house, 3 stars. Like you just gotta like out design someone else's city and then you claim it. Like the happy home designers have gotten very like imperialistic for some reason, and they're like, listen, we take this really seriously and we don't want just trash in our planet. So it's sort of like design or be killed to an extent.
Design
So
or die. Okay.
exactly.
That's the
So
that's the
like
subtitle. It's Animal Crossing Design or Die.
as you're
Okay.
expanding your town, you might bump up against the border of some other player's town. And when
Oh,
that happens, the committee, because it's like, well, who's gonna get, there's this patch of land that we both want
who
to
deserves it?
claim. So like, well, let's do a happy home designer contest. And it's like, oh, Marcus's town has 3 stars and yours only has one, so he gets it. And by extension, it has shrunken your town. And maybe if I wanted to, I could keep going and maybe start building stuff. Maybe I could start taking your people, like your villagers, start looking
Wow.
over the fence and going like, man, his town looks way nicer. I want to go over there. And like that's how you start to lose ground.
I do like that idea of having like an instance where it's like you can invite people, almost like how like sports games will allow you to invite people into like your online franchise. Just allow everybody to be in the same instance. Like you could invite like, 4 friends, for example, to be on your island, and you're all building your own little individual towns. A huge island, so there's room for 4 or 5 towns in there. And yeah, like you can go and visit each other's towns whenever you want. Sometimes they'll be online, sometimes they won't. You won't have to get on this, we'll have to go to the airport and wait for like the connection and everything. It's just like if you want to play online, you're just online. And if somebody else is on at the same time as you can visit each other's towns and hang out. Otherwise, it just all exists there. So like you can go hang out with their villagers. And then yeah, like there are times where it's like, okay, well, I have enough bells that I can expand my area, and I could like kind of screw you over in your plans for expansion if I wanted to, or we could all collaborate together, like just based on how you want to play it, and working towards the ultimate goal of just making this island better. I like that idea, actually. Like it's a little bit of an adaptation of your idea. Yours is a little bit more hostile.
Hostile, is that the word you want to use? I
I
think
would, yeah. um, but yeah, I like that idea. I think that would be a great switch to year 2 game.
regardless of what they do, it'd be great if they supported it longer than 1 year.
Oh yeah, and especially given how successful. Oh my god, it drives
Yeah,
me crazy when
let's
they
not
when they
do
do.
that again.
All right, so ones that we have skipped, and let me know in the comments if you have ideas for any of these, by the way. But like, any of the ones we've talked about or any of the ones that we've skipped. We're skipping things like Splatoon. We're skipping WarioWare, Yoshi, Earthbound. Duck Hunt I had on the list, but we've gone long, so we're going to skip that. It would be fun to have like a third-person shooter Duck Hunt, just the ducks coming at you in waves.
It's just horde mode, but
It
with
is,
ducks.
yeah. You have to build like you're setting out your traps.
That's funny.
But let's get to the heavy hitters that we're going to close out with here, Marcus. Four remain here, all very big names, all ones that like I had to think on for quite a while here. Super Smash Brothers. The last one, Ultimate on Switch in 2018. This was the one that actually inspired this entire idea because I was thinking like, where the heck can they go with this franchise after what they did with Ultimate? So I'm assuming this is one of the ones that you were like, I'm surprised you haven't named this one yet. So what do you got?
This is gonna be the boring answer, but I think they're gonna do the Mario Kart 8 route and just re-release Ultimate as deluxe mode. Like I think they, in the way that Mario Kart 8 was sort of like, where do they go from here? And then they're like, we don't know. So that's why we're doing deluxe. And we're just gonna keep adding stuff to it because we need another console generation to actually figure that out. I think it's gonna be Smash's turn to be like, listen, guys, we added so many characters.
We don't
We
have a
don't
new
know
one.
yet.
Yeah.
Or like we don't know how to like iterate on this outside of just, I guess, keep adding more. So here's another stage, I guess. And I don't know. Here's Master Chief. We figured that out. We got him.
I think that people would be actually very excited if they're like Ultimate Deluxe is coming to Switch 2. If you already own Ultimate and like all the DLC, you can upgrade for like $20 or something to this.
Yeah.
And then on top of like adding like 10 new characters and like 5 new stages and like maybe a new single player mode or something like that, like a subspace emissary. On top of that, you also get like, hey, we're doing 2 more seasons of character releases. So like, that'll have like 5 characters each. So it's going to be a total of like 20 new characters coming to Smash Ultimate through this deluxe thing. That would be, I think people would be very excited about that. Continue building this as a platform, which is something that I don't mind.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I would be disappointed in that just because I think because the question of what do you do next, I feel like the answer is going to be less than what you did before, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like you can't just not have a roster of 80 plus players for the next Smash game. Because like, no, it's going to be a downgrade. So maybe again, maybe they need another like 6 years to figure that out, and they'll just do this in the meantime.
My idea is the exact opposite of what you are saying. My idea is a back to basics approach. And that is take us back to like 12 characters, but you can't just give us the same move sets for all these characters that you gave us. Make it a more like still make it approachable, still make it something that like, oh, we're at a party and like people want to play the Switch 2. Let's load up Super Smash Brothers Ultimate 2 or whatever you end up calling it. Or I guess it wouldn't be called Ultimate because you're pairing back. Open up Super Smash Brothers and make it so that it is like, still approachable, still very easy to pick up and play, but rework every single character. And then, you can start adding them back in as deluxe or DLC, make it so that like, okay, we have like the original 12 from Smash 64, but they are all reworked, all modern visuals, like kind of like Smash Ultimate, but like, just basically start at that with a starting point, and then you can make that as your platform and keep adding in these characters that are now fully reworked with new abilities. Like, like they added characters like Sonic, and Sonic just has like, he's fun to play, but he's not like well represented in terms of like his abilities. It would be cool if they actually like, okay, well, how can we like rework Mario to be like more of a modern representation instead of like just kind of slowly evolved from his 64 character debut. Like give him Cappy, let him capture characters as like one version, or I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of like different ways. Make it so like Wonder Flowers are like one of his thing maybe, and like it transforms the stage.
I would say just make a Wonder stage that just
That
has
would
a
be
Wonder
really
Flower
cool.
pop up every now and then, and whoever touches it, it does wacky stuff to the stage. But
Yeah, but there's plenty of ways that they could go about like reworking all the characters. Sakurai knows all of these characters so inside and out. I think that it would be cool to see him like take each character a fresh approach and then slowly add back in those characters as DLC, building back up, maybe not to the level of Ultimate, but like maybe up to the level that we got in like Melee or Brawl in terms of like the character roster. And then, over the course of 6 or 7 years, we could get back up to like what would be acceptable for like a Smash thing, a Smash roster.
See, they've respectfully, Brian, I feel like fans would hate that with a burning passion. And the big thing is because the Switch 2 we know is going to be backwards compatible.
Mm.
So why would I buy a new Smash where you take away 80% of the roster and ask me to buy those characters again when Ultimate still works on my Switch 2? And it's like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to play this
Well,
one.
because the characters are all reworked and reimagined and
No,
done in a way that is like completely different. I'm not saying like, oh, well, now Mario's fireballs go further. It's like, no, this is like B now does this for this character and B forward does this.
Sure. And fighting games do this all the time anyway, like traditional fighting games. Like it's not new, but Nintendo and this is a very Nintendo thing to do, to ask you to buy the same thing over and over again. But I don't know. I feel like this might be a bridge too far for fans. Like I feel just like the optics of wait. You gave us 80 plus characters and now you're taking them away, like a lot of them, not even the ones that were in the box the first time. Like they're gone too. And you want me to buy them again? Like I already paid for Sephiroth. You want me to buy Sephiroth again with a few new tweaks, which I think it depends on how hardcore you are with the game. Like I don't play Smash competitively. Like to me, it's more of a party game. I don't want to say weirdos, but I'm not the people that are hardcore, like, Final Destination Fox, no items. Like, no. I'm like all the items, all the silliness, all the time. So I don't care as much about like, well, we changed the meta a little bit where, Mario punches a little bit a frame faster than he did before or whatever. So I'll be like, no, I'm just going to keep playing Ultimate. I don't want to buy all these people again. Come back to me when you're done and put everyone, I guess, back in the game and release the Ultimate Edition that has everybody.
Listen, I'm saying yours is the more likely outcome. I'm just trying to think of what direction they could go if they wanted to do like an all new thing that isn't just like
12 characters,
bigger and more characters. I'm saying that's the starting point. And then alongside that, you announced that over the next year, we're going to be adding a character a month for the next, over the next like 5 years. There's going to be one new character every single month that's completely reworked, reimagined.
Sure.
Based on like whatever their modern move sets are in their current games, not just like, oh, well, Sonic had the spin dash when we implemented him, so every move is based on the homing attack and the spin dash. And it's like, no, now he has like all these other moves that were introduced in Frontiers. I know I keep using Sonic as an example. It's just like the most egregious answer I can give in terms of like this character has not really meaningfully evolved with his other like game appearances.
Can we add John Cena to the game?
All right, so Mario Kart. Mario Kart's another one that inspired this this idea for this episode. The last entry, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch in 2017 was the last like mainline entry, I would say, but the most recent was actually Mario Kart Live Home Circuit on Switch in 2020. If you recall, that's the one that's the real like RC car that you got to build your real tracks with and everything. And then there was also Mario Kart Tour that came to mobile devices in 2019. We've had the Booster Course Pass that doubled the number of tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So it's kind of like a Smash Ultimate situation for them as well. Where do you go with Mario Kart, Marcus?
So I think they can't do Deluxe again. They burnt their one free generation of just iterating now. So I think we do get Mario Kart 9 proper. I think they go back to the well and say, hey, remember Double Dash? What if you could do that again? We got Double Dash in here, but what if we up the ante and you could have more people in a cart? I've written down here
Quadruple Dash.
You call it carpool mode.
Carpool mode.
And you just have like a van of players just going down a Mario Kart track.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Each of them take I'm in the right rear window, so I can throw things from that side. You go take, it's like it's like Overcooked a little bit where you're just managing. All right, who's driving? Who's driving right now? Okay, you drive. I'm gonna be on this gunner seat, so to speak. I've got the superstar who has the lightning. You save that. Like you're like yelling at each other, like, don't use the lightning yet. Hold on, wait till we're like losing. You throw the green shell now. Like, you're just screaming at each other,
Oh
trying
my
to
god.
competently and cooperatively race other teams of characters down a drain. It's not the main mode. It's like a mode
It's
in
a
the game.
5v5 mode, one
Exactly.
driver and then two people on each side. You could even make it 6v6 and have a person on the back.
There you go. So it's just like squad based racing.
So I squad based racing, I have an idea built around that where there's like team modes where it's like, there's like 12 racers in the race, or you can bump it up to 16. And then within those you develop like your teams. And I think you can already do that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where it's like, okay, well, we are red team and we're blue team, and then like, the teams are going to score based on the placement of all the other characters. I don't know if you can do that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe now that I'm saying it out loud. Maybe that's just like something I've always wanted. And I used to do this kind of like when I would play Super Mario Kart with my dad. We would be on a team, and it's like you couldn't do that like in the game, but it's like, okay, well, I'm in first place. You just like kind of protect me and like stop anybody who passes you and like is going to try to attack me. That's a cool way to kind of evolve the formula. But the way that I'm going about it is it's time. It's Smash Kart. It's Super
Mm.
Smash Kart. Bring like we already have Link and we have the Inklings and we have Isabelle and different Animal Crossing characters. Let's just lean into that. Let's just expand the roster, expand the worlds that you're racing through. Like
Mm.
really lean into the fact that we are leveraging the entire Nintendo roster. It's not just Mario and a few cameo characters. This is full on like, yes, we have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, like all the mainstays from
Mm.
the Mario Kart franchise. And then the other idea that I had was kind of borrow from Diddy Kong Racing, where it's like there's you already have the anti grav in Mario Kart 8. Make it so there's like you can go sky, you can go underwater, but like not in like the ways you can in Mario Kart 8, where it's like, okay, well, you're in the sky, so you have like a little hang glider. Like make it so you are piloting like little single character planes like you were in Diddy Kong Racing.
Mm.
So that's
It's a little
my
bit
other
like a like Sonic Racing Transformed.
exactly. Exactly like Sonic All-Star Racing Transform. That's such a mouthful of a title. But we're getting Sonic Racing Cross
Cross
Worlds, which
Worlds?
was
Yeah.
announced at the Game Awards. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. It'd be cool if they went back to that racing transform style.
Do you think they could ever add a story mode to Mario Kart, like an actual narrative to contextualize these
I
races?
think it would be a mistake.
But would it be funny?
Team Sonic Racing did that, where they were like, "Hey, let's add like a story mode," and it was like, "Who cares?"
But I mean, didn't you want the in-universe explanation for why these races happen? And then you have the climactic battle on Rainbow Road, and they're going through space. And let's just say Mario's about to win. He's about to get to the finish line, and all of a sudden he sees something in the distance. Like, what's that? Is that a Metroid?
You're just lumping him back into that old idea
And
that
then,
you had.
sure enough, he sees two ships come in, and it looks like Rosalina's in one of them, and she's like, "Whoa, who's this bounty hunter and this fox man and this little astronaut with these little aliens following him?" And they're like, "Mario, we've been looking for you. You gotta go. We got something to do." You see how you like Nintendo basically learns from Marvel and says we could use multiple games to build towards the super game that's going to come later. Maybe that's how they promote the next Smash Brothers, because they already have everyone in there. They're like, they're gonna lay seeds in these other games, and then the next Smash Brothers is where they come together.
And
To
canonical to all those
yeah,
games.
like the story mode of Smash Brothers is them fighting Metroids. That's the subspace emissary.
Oh my God, Marcus. We're I think we're running out of fuel here.
It guarantees, just like they get you. They're like, well, I got to buy this game now because it's going to have the next piece of this grand story they're
Yeah,
telling. I
nobody
don't
wanted
know.
to watch Thor 2: The Dark World, but they had to because they wanted to see if the story was going to continue building.
People love treating their entertainment like homework.
All right, we are down to the final franchise, but we're going to split it into two. We have The Legend of Zelda, Marcus. Last
Hmm.
but certainly not least. So the last 2D entry in the Legend of Zelda franchise was Echoes of Wisdom on Switch just last year. And then the last 3D entry, as you know, is Tears of the Kingdom, came to Switch in 2023. Do you have a pitch for either or both of these?
So the next open world game will be in the vein of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, but in the way that Tears of the Kingdom kind of took a page out of Skyward Sword's book, it's going to keep that, but now, because of the power of the Switch 2, we're going to add a seafaring component harkening back to Wind
Ooh,
Waker
okay.
and say, like, hey, what if you could? We've added a whole ocean to this Hyrule map with islands. And with Ultra Hand, what if you could build boats and you could sail around and go wherever you wanted? What if you just did more of that? Because there's a bit of that in Breath of the Wild, whatever, but it's very limited. Like, what if there were more of that? What was that island from Breath of the Wild that you get stranded on for that mission?
Oh
Like,
god, I hated that mission.
I love that. I thought it was so cool. What if you just did more weird stuff like that? Like, all these islands have weird little secrets and gimmicks to them, and it's just like seafaring Breath of the Wild,
Just seems like Wind
basically.
Waker 2 is what you're pitching.
But like, it's in the it's in that world, like it's still that universe.
Okay.
So, whatever story, oh my God, Calamity Ganon's back again, but he's in the ocean this time. Uh, you know.
And guess what? To promote this, you could put Wind Waker HD on Switch 2.
Yeah, like you've never seen Link sail
It's
a boat?
happening!
Well, we got a game for you to get you ready for this. You might want to brush up on your seafaring skills with this talking red boat. What if you brought him back? What if he's in this new
The
game?
King of Red Lions?
Yeah, everyone reincarnates everywhere. Why not him? Why can't he come back?
It's plausible. It's plausible.
Would anyone question it? You just go, whatever. I don't care about the timeline implications. You just go with it.
So I have 3 pitches, and I'll be quick with it on the 3D side of things. 1, Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD. Come on, man.
Well,
2,
the current Switch is too weak to handle those.
exactly.
That was the problem. They're like,
2, if you want to go back to the Ocarina of Time style, like with like that type of like design, where it's like, okay, well, it's more reined in terms of like the exploration, and it's more linear, but still having that open area component. You just do the full on remake of Ocarina of Time. That way, it's like people going back to like, okay, we know this is a remake of an older game, but then for people who have gotten on the Zelda train since Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you give them that classic format with, graphical enhancements, modernizations. But like, since it's couched in the idea of, oh, this is a remake of this incredible game from 1998, they have this expectation that it's like a more constricted. It's not. It doesn't feel like a step backwards for those fans who got on board with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Instead, it feels like, okay, this is a remake of a classic game. And then when the Zelda team decides they want to do kind of a new game in that style, it doesn't feel like, oh, well, what is this? This is like a total step backwards. It's like, oh no, this feels like a continuation of that game that we played on Switch 2 in its first couple of years. So that would be a good way to broach that style with the newer fans. And then my final idea for a 3D Zelda game, I've talked about this a couple of times, where it's just the third game in that trilogy. It's the grand finale. The reason that the reincarnations happen with Link and Zelda and Ganon is that Demise in Skyward Sword put that kind of curse on the Zelda and Link kind of lineages, and then they sealed him in the Master Sword. Do you remember what happened at the start of Tears of the Kingdom? That Master Sword got shattered pretty thoroughly.
it did.
Did Demise escape? And now Ganon has been defeated. First Calamity Ganon, then Ganondorf. Now Demise is the main boss, and that is the final entry in the Zelda timeline. And then you can either reboot it or go back and fill in some of the gaps like they have been for the past several decades. But this would be the climactic final battle with the original evil that Link and Zelda had to face back in Skyward Sword, and it comes full circle, and then you can do whatever you want after that. But it's the final entry in like the Breath of the Wild trilogy.
Right.
And I know that Nintendo has said they don't want to do any more in that style or with that Hyrule, but that would be a cool way to put an end cap on the timeline, especially since this is so far in the distant future.
Mhm.
so far in the future, in fact, that everything before Breath of the Wild is just like, what is it called? Like the bygone era or something like that on the official timeline. So that would be a good way to put an end cap on that. And then you can fill in the gaps that have happened since like the most recent entries and in that like 10,000 year stretch that took place between the other Zelda games and Breath of the Wild.
Do you have an idea for what the new mechanic will be for this game?
I have no clue. But again, this is a very baseline pitch, but
Sure.
that I never would have thought of Ultra Hand as like the big or fusion or anything like that for like what you could do with Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. What if Link could just fly?
Huh.
Like just freely, like
Well, hey,
Superman
give
style. Like
I'll
he
always
just
be
could
like the
just
Loft
fly.
Wings.
Yeah. Like
Bring them back since, uh, Demise is back, so why not Loft Wings?
yep, there you go. Yeah. He could put them on his feet too. Like be like little like Hermes.
Loft Wing shoes.
Oh,
We
loft
found it.
shoes. There you go. It's like those I think it's like Nike that had the like wing sneakers or for who it was. We'll
Yeah.
just make a deal with them. It's just
Okay.
it's a licensing agreement ultimately. But
Do you have anything for 2D before we wrap up here?
um I think they're gonna want to at least one more time do the Echoes of Wisdom thing again. Like I think they're gonna want to do one more iteration to either blow that out or like just expand on it in some way. Like take whatever criticisms that people had for Echoes of Wisdom and go, okay, we can do some of those. Maybe make it a little more difficult or but I think in general it'll be like another Zelda game. Like she'll still be the protagonist
Okay.
and that'll be kind of like her niche is this sort of like Breath of the Wild inspired take on 2D Zelda. And maybe in the next one, she gets to become Sheik and you can play around with that too.
Okay. Interesting. That would be, I mean, that would be fun. That would be I think, more welcome to me in terms of the gameplay style than what Echoes of Wisdom was, which I enjoyed, but it wasn't like really like a favorite Zelda of mine.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I just immediately I wanted to say like just remaster A Link Between Worlds because that game needs to be on modern
Right. I mean,
platforms.
that's what I actually want.
But what would you think if we're not because I can't think of like a gimmick or anything for 2D Zelda. I liked like the non-linearity of A Link Between Worlds where it's like you could go to any dungeon at any time and like select any weapon or accessory that you wanted to rent for that. What about if the Prince of Persia the Lost Crown team, they did a Q&A on Reddit around the time of that game's release, and they said their dream project would be to remake Zelda 2. I say give it to them. I say let them remake Zelda 2, make it a because it's overworld explorations top down, and then you enter a town or you enter a dungeon and it goes side scrolling. Let that team cook with that format.
Oh
That
my
would be
god.
so good.
Could you imagine a Zelda game that just played straight up like Lost Crown? Like it's just
Oh,
Link just
it'd be
parkouring
so good.
everywhere and just doing this like super slick combat? That'd be
That
so
would
good.
be incredible. So yeah, that's my pitch for a 2D Zelda game.
They kind of have a Dark Link style fight in Lost Crown. There is a fight where you kind of fight yourself. So
Hey, they said that they wanted to do it. I say let them.
it's like, yeah. I mean, that team, I mean, they're not fire. They're still in Ubisoft, just scattered to the winds. But, if they ever get cut loose, I would love to see them reform and just keep doing that. God, Lost Crown is so good.
And yeah, you know who Nintendo has a pre-existing relationship with Mario plus Rabbids?
Oh,
Ubisoft.
maybe get the close thing Prince of Persia cross Mario. Like, just combine the two
And then
together.
you look off into space and it's like, wait, who's that?
Yeah, what is that? Is he like we've heard?
Samus.
We heard you can rewind time. We need your help.
So, Marcus, before we wrap up this fun segment, thank you so much for joining me for this, by the way. Were there any franchises or ideas that you had that you just absolutely were excited to talk about? We didn't get to that franchise.
Actually, Splatoon was the one I had. Maybe probably the one I put the most thought into. Were like Splatoon 4,
And we
kind
skipped
of.
it.
I had a whole page of like, oh, I had this whole pitch ready. I guess not. But no, I was like, what if Splatoon 4? Because we're in the fourth game now. I think they're going to start feeling like we can't maybe keep doing this again. We need something to shake it up. So the big new mode is their take on Battle Royale, where it's just a big landmass of some sort, and it's team based like Apex Legends. So like
Okay.
maybe like the same like team composition as like a traditional Splatfest, but you just have to. It's just a Splatfest on a gigantic island, and you're still trying to do the thing of trying to paint as much territory as you can, but every now and then the ring shrinks, and instead of just being caught outside the ring and dying, like if you don't meet a certain paint coverage quota, then you're eliminated. So like maybe the first ring will be like, oh, you have to have like this amount of paint on the map. Doesn't matter where it is, you just have to have that laid down. And if you don't, your team just gets knocked out. And it's just whittling
Hmm.
down all these teams until you get to the end. But it lets you just like blow out a giant arena. Like it could be like either the big city that like the hub world is in, or just do something really cool. And you just see like dozens and dozens and dozens of players just painting and shooting each other and doing all this fun stuff, just surfing around up skyscrapers and stuff.
I love that. I would play the crap out of that, but also keep the single player stuff because the single
Yeah,
player
yeah,
in
yeah.
Splatoon has always been incredible and
Yeah,
underrated.
this would be like their what was that mode in Splatoon 2 that was
Salmon
really
Run.
fun. Yeah, like it'd be like their salmon run, but also this would be available all the time. So you could just play it.
Well, they did that with Splatoon 3. I think it's available all the time in Splatoon 3, the Salmon Run mode.
Yeah. I
So they
still
have
haven't played Splatoon 3.
it's very good, and
I know.
the DLC is also great that
Yeah.
they put out. But Marcus, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing your ideas. My idea was just bring back Tomodachi Life. I love that little game on 3DS. That was so much fun. But before we wrap up, in case you are listening to this and wondering what's on the other side of the Patreon fence, it gives you early and ad-free episodes of this very show, access to the community Discord, and priority for Q&A and community participation episodes. There's also the $10 tier, which offers you access to a second podcast called All Things Gamers. It is an industry-wide episode or an industry-wide podcast. So if you're interested in what that has to offer, this week on All Things Gamers, I had former Game Informer production director Margaret Andrews on the show, and we talked about our most anticipated games of 2025. We looked at the upcoming calendar and even got into a tiny bit of Nintendo Switch 2 talk. So you can find All Things Gamers at the $10 a month tier on the All Things Nintendo Podcast Patreon, but there are other tiers available if you are not quite ready to jump in on that level. But that wraps up this episode of All Things Nintendo, Marcus. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode.
Yes, thank you for having me, and you're welcome, Nintendo.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. As you know, that Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. You can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky at Brian P. Shea. That is also my YouTube channel name, and if you would subscribe to that, it would help out a lot. Marcus, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at MarcusStewart7, which is the number 7. As Brian mentioned earlier, I have a Twitch channel that I'm pretty active on. You can find that. It is Marcus Streams Games. I got winding down my Super Replay Revisit of Sekiro. I'm at the final boss. That's every Friday. And then every Monday, I just started a full playthrough of the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver Remastered. First time I've ever played Legacy of Kain anything, honestly. So yeah, I got usually stream at least 2 or 3 times a week, so you can check me out there.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we close out this show, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons to the All Things Nintendo podcast. Aaron Smith, Abdullah, Adam Scott, Elena R., Alec Acanino, Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chain Whippin, Chaps My Ass, Chris Callie, Colton Bredlow, Dan Norman, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jackal, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joseph, Joshua DeProy, Justin Childress, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, Lindsay Hartz, Mad Genie Confused Koala, Marshall Thompson, Megan S., Nintendo 101, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Philip G. Cox, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sousa, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Scott Matthews, Sir Phobos, Smithy Poo, Tux DC, Wham Bam Sam the Gaming Man, Zach Marcus, Zachary Pliggy, and Zek 3 Swords Sama. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to and support the All Things Nintendo podcast.